Peace. No, this was kind of real last minute, but I figured, fuck it. I didn't really put it out there. I talked about this topic yesterday, so I figured I had the time that I'd actually do it live. So I kind of wait till we get some people come in. Like I said, it was real last minute type shit. I mentioned this title yesterday. I said I was gonna just shoot it real quick and upload it. I didn't get around to it, so I figured I had the time now that I would just go ahead and shoot it. So I'm gonna wait for a minute or two before we begin, and then we will go ahead and get going. I know the link went out very late, so we will give it a minute or two. So I know, like I said, I know it was real last minute. I mentioned this topic yesterday because somebody had emailed it to me, and I'll go over that in a minute. Well, had asked a question in reference to it, I should say. Had asked if I could address it, and I thought it was a good topic. It was a good question. But it's a good mindset to approach, not just, the question that was in relation to, La Santísima Muerte, the Holy Death. I'm going to talk a little bit about agnostic and gnostic, the difference, etc. Anyway, we'll wait a minute. While I'm waiting, and again, like I said, this was real last minute. I didn't even really put a link out for this. I just kind of popped it on now. See who we get to show up. All right, but anyway, I'll just run through a couple quick announcements. I received a couple emails today about the event on the 25th. You should have gotten the email about the invite, the directions, as far as the directions, information you need to attend, etc. So if you need any information on any of that stuff, the events, like I usually say, or if you need any information on consultations, readings, online classes, the email you see in the description box, that's where you want to hit me up. KHNUM19@gmail.com. You'll see it in the description box. All right, so like I said, I'm just going to roll with it. And people that don't catch it, they can kind of catch it after it uploads. I'm sure more. I'll see people slowly trickling in. Like I said, this is last minute. So what I wanted to talk about real quick, somebody sent me an email on different systems, how you can approach working with the Holy Death or Santísima Muerte. They mentioned in the email agnostic and gnostic, more so a gnostic path of, let me back this up just a hair, the gnostic path of the Holy Death. Well, I think, again, where some confusion comes in is, again, separating the tradition or the traditional ways and methods from creating your own path, your own system. I think people still struggle with that when it comes to existing systems, but it was a good question. So this person basically said they apply, and I don't like when people follow it up. Is that right or wrong? That's another way of thinking or mentality. We got to stop getting at it. You got to catch yourself when you do that. This particular person says they use a Gnostic method or a Gnostic spiritual approach to working with the Holy Death, right? Now, if you understand, let's first discuss the difference. You probably have heard those words many times before in the past, Gnostic and agnostic, right? Well, a Gnostic person believes in the esoterical, the spiritual, the knowledge, and the hidden meanings of something. They also claim in some circles a Gnostic will have, not in a religious or a faith belief way, but they have or affirm within themselves 100% belief that there is some type of supernatural force I'm just giving you an example, a creator, a God, some supreme being, all right, for lack of a better word. I'm going to show you how you approach this two ways. Then you have an agnostic who says you can't prove God does exist or does not exist. So in a sense, they kind of place themselves in that equation. But we're focusing on the esoteric or the gnostic aspect, which is, in my opinion, a good approach if you are going to work with the Holy Death. Because I still see from emails and some videos that I did whenever that was, not too long ago, several weeks ago, whatever. I think that was in November or might have been early in the month, whatever, but it's in the archives. People are still getting a little jammed up and caught up in the traditional aspect of things. All right. I made it clear when I did, I think the video was titled The Aztec Roots of La Santa Muerte, the Holy Death. You need to understand the original aspect of it as far as its essence and its origin. I think where some people are getting a little confused, because most of the stuff you're going to stumble across on the surface, obviously, is a lot of the traditional stuff that exists with the Holy Death today. There is, quote unquote, there's a lot of Christianized Catholicism influence in it. If you go, what I was presenting in the video, now I'm going to make this clear. Whichever methodology you choose to work with it, that's personal. That's your business. But if you're looking on this path, some suggestions on how to work with it the correct way, there is a method. Now, the Gnostic path, being the esoterical, the hidden meanings, the knowledge that's encoded in these symbols and these mysteries. In this case, we're talking about the Holy Death. All right, so we need to look at it from, we'll use that term, a Gnostic perspective. How should you perceive this? Because, all right, here's where, again, no matter how many times we talk about it, people continue to struggle with this concept of focusing in on some type of deity. And it's important that you're conscious in your mind that you're still not approaching it and you're not conscious of it in a mode of worshiping something. We don't want that. Because then again, we're back and stuck in traditions. We're back stuck following things. We're back stuff waiting to be told what to do. We're back in looking for guidance from other places rather than us taking, control and taking action and applying that ourselves. So I thought it was unique that the person that emailed me, that they approach it from a Gnostic perspective. And I asked in the email, what is your definition of Gnostic? Because everybody might have similar explanations, but it might not exactly be the same. So this person said, well, the esoterical, the inner meanings, the spiritual aspect of it, the knowledge aspect of it, and how to apply that. So I said, okay, very good. That's kind of how I would look at it similarly if we're going to use that term. So it made me think, really, this methodology can be applied to it's a good example to use to approach when working, quote unquote, with an archetype, with a deity, whatever you want to call it. We need to go beyond the traditions. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, what you're going to pull up mainstream until you got to dig, it's there. But when you pull up the surface stuff, again, as I said in past videos, they're going to have it connected to modern day Mexico, the Catholic Church. And there is a lot of religious traditions, as I said before, instilled in it. They'll use that same concept like a saint in, let's say in Catholicism, they'll use the term prayer. We have to be careful with that. I refer to Tracy Rollins' book in that video, La Santa Muerte, the Holy Death, because I think her approach in there is something anybody on this path can use as an example as far as creating a spiritual methodology or method of working with the Holy Death. Now, let me give you an example, and I'll show you one way how I'll utilize the concepts. Okay. Now, as I said before in the past, you have different aspects of representations. You'll see many different. Not to rehash all of it, but I'm just going to run through it real quickly to kind of get to what I kind of really want to explain. You see different aspects: the 7-colored aspect. You see the red. You'll see images of her in all white, all black. You'll see rain. You'll see money images. There's different aspects because they represent the different images, colors, and symbols represent different aspects how you can communicate and create that the power that you need when working your magic in your subconscious mind. If you're working in any of those areas, when you go back and understand what those colors and representations work, that's a telltale sign of how you need to approach. If let's say you're going to do a ritual or a working, let's start with the black image, because the black image is probably the one that I frequently and pretty much use most of the time. I do have a 7-colored aspect. Actually, I have a small one here. Let me grab this, even though it's 7-color, but I can still use the imagery. Hold on. All right, so this will be a good. I can use this as an example because I have a small one here in the main room that I keep actually right by my father and mother's shrine. All right. We're going to use some of the symbolisms on here. Let's just say, all right, even though this is the 7-colored one, right? I have a small one here. Even though this is the 7 different aspects, right? You see, I mentioned in a video a couple weeks back, all right, that this very closely correlates the same way you would work with the 7 African powers, because this represents the gatekeepers, opening pathways and roadways, the abode and the connection from this realm to that realm. You can use the 7-colored petition like you would the 7 African powers in voodoo to do certain petitions or work, whether you're doing work for finances, relationships, promotions. It's a good concept to use for magic, especially road opening and clearing paths and opening roads to new opportunities. But let's focus on the Gnostic aspect of the Holy Death and remove a lot of the tradition, right? Let's just say that this is the black aspect and she's wearing an all black robe. You should be able to approach it, for an example, when you look at that image, we know what the black represents. Look at being involved, because remember, this also connects when we're talking about primordial chaos, prime energy. In every aspect, when you look at the symbol of death, the skeleton, right, of the Holy Death, right? You look at the face, the bones, and we're going to go over this for a little bit. The skith, we're going to talk a little bit about that, all right? So we're looking at this from a Gnostic perspective, right? And then you see, obviously, holding, the earth or planet in her hand, whatever you want to call it. Now, you'll see some images where there'll be an owl at her feet. This one doesn't have it, not the small one don't. You'll see also where she'll even be some images you'll see seated on a throne. There'll be an owl somewhere in that. There's a science behind the owl, right? We'll talk about that. So the black robes represent, from a Gnostic perspective, it's a symbol of so many different things. Primordial chaos. It's a symbol of no limitations, no boundaries. One can visualize themselves being engulfed in those black robes and what they represent. I'm saying if you're doing a working and you're focused, because remember, icons or statues, whatever you want to call them, you're supposed to utilize them from a focal point. So when you look at the image, what is being communicated to your subconscious mind? Don't sit and look at it and focus how we've been programmed and trained in religion to look at it as an object to worship. Then when that starts to kick into your mindset, then you get a prayer mentality, right? And you don't know how to differentiate between doing an invocation or an evocation, performative utterance, etc. You don't that goes out the window, because the mind is trained to look at it externally from a worship perspective. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. We don't want to do that. All right. So that's the black robe. All right. The skith, right? Which is, everybody's familiar with the skith through the concept of the Grim Reaper. It's used as a tool to, what they'll say, to reap things, in this case, souls. I don't just look at the skith as that. You see the Grim Reaper or the Holy Death, and that represents only coming to collect the soul. Remember, the skith is a powerful tool you can use in your magic when invoking and working with this energy, to use it as a road clearing object. Don't look at it just as for destruction, because if there's destruction, if something is being destroyed with this, then something also is being created. I look at it as a symbol of protection, right? One great thing you can do with the Holy Death and place yourself in the equation is you can do a visualization, and you can focus on particular things, be they person, places, or things. You can focus on a particular situation or scenario. And I like to visualize the actual skith, create our own personal visualization in my mind of those things and those obstructions being removed from my path. You can create invocations such as, I'll say something like, I call upon the dark mother goddess. I ask to stand behind her skith as a tool of protection. Now, remember, this is an invocation. When you're doing it, visualize it. And I will say along the lines in that personal invocation, remove all obstructions in my path by the power of the skith. Again, be it person, place, or thing. Now, at that moment, when you're doing this invocation via the visualization, if you know of a particular thing, that's the moment you focus on it. And you might want to visualize yourself using that tool or implement, because what that does is communicate a much more powerful message to your psyche and then to your subconscious mind. And the lasting effects of it, you might feel some of it at the moment, but you will understand if you stay at something like that consistently. You will be very surprised how the results, one, that you get very quick, two, when you're doing it consistently, how second nature it can become, right? Now, the skeleton, right? That's an individual. In this case, the dark mother goddess represents in your rawest pure form, the rawest you're ever going to get, because technically that's a state that we will evolve into, which represents death. So we have to focus on that and understand that. Remember, I said working with the death current, number one. If you're working via the ancestors, if you're working necromancy, any voodoo, any system that works in some shape, form, or aspect with the spirits of the dead, all of those above mentioned systems do that. All right. The death current is about evolving and changing. And this particular symbol, and we're working with the energy of the Holy Death, is one of the most powerful you can work with. Trust me when I tell you, because it embodies and engulfs all of those things. These are the things you need to focus on and remove the tradition, the prayers. I'm not saying you can and cannot do offerings. I know some people like to give offerings. One thing you're going to learn when working with these type of spiritual systems, sometimes the most simplest thing is as just a fresh glass of water is one of the most powerful things you can do. Sometimes you could charge that water up. Sea salt, you could add a little elements to it. You might want to mix, some herb, little Florida water or a certain scent. That's fine, because that just enhances it, not so much just for the spirit that you're working with, but also enhances your personal connection. So however you see fit to work and connect with that, that's entirely up to you. But what we have to focus on when we're doing this is not to get caught up in the tradition. Now, again, as I said earlier, and I said in previous videos, if you choose, I am not being judgmental, because I do know many people that have contacted me, and they are more or do work more with the traditional aspect of it. And remember, when we're applying the Luciferian mindset, how you should approach everything and evaluating things, being a critical thinker, deciphering knowledge and how you're going to apply it to yourself, that's when you want to take on that Luciferian mindset. Again, you don't have to be a full-fledged and make a declaration to the world that you're a practicing Luciferian to apply what Luciferianism represents. But that's how you decipher and break down knowledge. So from that perspective, I would clearly say, because I can only speak for myself, I don't really mess with any of the traditional aspect of it. Doesn't really, move me, because I think what it does is kind of dumb down the divinity or the god or the goddess that resides within you. But if you do choose to do it and you're getting results, power to you. So we also have to understand, just because we may not like something or do it or gravitate towards it, we also have to understand there are other people that do and will, and they get results. And then again, you know me, if anybody asks me a question, I don't believe in anything, number one, and I don't believe in somebody asking me what I should and should not do, because that shows me serious confusion on the part of the individual. And my answer to that is always, you do what you need to do to get results. It don't matter what it is. And it doesn't matter if other people agree with it or not. It doesn't matter what it appears to other people or how people perceive it, because some people might look at things you do as being religious. Some people might look at things you do as being a little, the term space cadetty or fanatical or that stuff. One thing you have to learn to do and discipline yourself on this path is not to be concerned what anybody thinks, not to worry about, because if you're doing something and somebody makes a critical statement, if you get caught up in your personal emotions about it, you get angry and reactive, then it shows not just that the person was able to get up under your skin, but it shows you got a lot more work to do on yourself. So using the Gnostic approach, and in this case, we're talking about the Holy Death. Hold on, did I not turn the chat on this thing? Oh man, hold on. I think that's why I'm not seeing that. I'm sorry, I think the chat is off, people. Let me see if I could turn it on. I think I did, I forgot. I was rushing doing this shit. Hold on, bear with me. What the fuck I did. Hold on. I was wondering why I didn't see anything. All right, bear with me, people. The chat is off. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry. I got it on now. I don't know why I turned it off. Sorry. All right, so I apologize for that, people. I didn't even realize it was off. I got so caught up in what I was doing. Somebody just type something in just so I can make sure it's functioning. Okay, Yvette just typed something, 808. Somebody just, okay, all right, it's good. We good. Yeah, so and I'm going to go through, and again, we kind of use this for a free for all, because like I said, I just wanted to run through this. So the skip is where we left off. I'm going to go to your questions and your comments in a minute. I mentioned the owl. You will see a lot of images of the Holy Death. You'll see images where she's seated on the throne. There's an owl on her shoulder or the top of the chair. You'll see her standing. I'm trying to get you guys to focus on the symbolism, because the symbols communicate to the subconscious mind, and you have to know what those symbols represent. You'll see sometimes her standing with an owl at her feet, right? What is one of the main things that an owl is known for? It's superior vision in the dark, right? Pay attention to that. Owl represents many things, wisdom. This case, we're not talking about just physical vision. We're talking about spiritual vision, a deep spiritual insight. So in the symbolicism of the Holy Death alone, there's a multitude of things encoded. You got the skiff, the long black flowing robes, the head covered in black. You have the skeleton. I mentioned the skeleton in its purest form, which represents a transition from this life to the next life. That's what skulls represent. They are that image that bridges this realm, because when you remove what? The physical that comprises the body, when the physical is removed, the skin, the tissue, the organs, what's left? The bones, right? So you have to understand what that represents. So when you're looking upon that, It doesn't just take on the meaning of death, gloom, and doom. And unfortunately, believe it or not, there are some people out there who actually look at it like that. It really represents one, higher states of consciousness, connecting again, or bridging the gap or making the connection between this realm and that boat. It represents gateways, right? Especially this aspect, because since this is the one I'm holding here, is the 7 Coed aspect. As I mentioned before, in more practitioners who go back to more of the ancient aspects of the Holy Death, I told you they link that 7 Coed aspect to what they call the 7 African powers. And some in those circles believe, and they believe this based on their experience working with it, that is the only space she can share an altar with or energy, because there's a bridge and a connection there. I told you, when you want to bypass the tradition, you really got to dig and do your research. You'll find out this modern day concept that we get of it via, well, the most popular we know, via Mexico and Catholicism, is very modern. It's very new. It's not that old. We also got to remove from our mind the negative connotations it's got, because some people think, oh, well, only drug cartels, that's drug cartel deity, and got to get out of that stupidity and mind state. That's not true. Working with the Holy Death, in essence of what it symbolizes and represents, isn't much different from Ampu, isn't much different from Papa Legba or any other road opener or gatekeeper type of energy. So I'm trying to remove the spookism. How you would work with those archetypes and what they represent, it's really not much different. But when you understand, okay, we also got to understand the difference. I think people get confused with this. We also have to understand the difference between working with spirits and archetypes. It's not the same thing. It can get confusing because sometimes it's presented as the same and sounds as the same. In essence, they're all archetypes, because an archetype is just a character type, a description. It could be a system. It's not. I went over this in previous videos. Some people hear the word archetype and they only think that represents what we know as deity. No, an archetype can be a whole blueprint of something. An archetype can be a thesis or a concept on a particular spiritual system. An archetype can be a certain methodology you use. It's not just likened to a thing called deity. I think people get confused with that. So we have to, and understanding this is important, because if you understand this, then it's going to change your approach in your ritualistic work and working with them. Because what it's going to change, real simple. If you ask yourself, you say, well, what are you talking about? What is it going to change? Real simple. What it's going to change is you're going to now approach working with these energies, and you're going to be focused more on what they represent and the consciousness that it speaks to your subconscious mind. So now when you look at the Holy Death and you're going into the ritualistic work, I see, if I'm focused, I see the owl. That represents a high level of knowledge, wisdom, and intellect. It represents a superior spiritual vision, meaning you are awake now. You see things differently. This is how I approach it. You don't have to approach it the same way. I'm just giving you examples. The skith, right? Any of these road opening, path clearing archetypes, they all have a similar weapon, right? You could even look at Kali. Kali has the Pekibet knife. So does Sekhmet. So does Set. Why? Ask yourself, why do these deities that have similar energies always have some type of weapon that creates separation? Let me say this again. Let me go through it again. Visualize the many images you see of Kali. Visualize the main image of Kali. You always see Kali depicted in this, what can be to the outside looker, a gory looking interpretation, right? She has a whole bunch of heads that she decapitated. She has the bloody knife in her hand. We've all seen the tapestry, the images, the statues, right? What that represents, because Kali is a deity, just like the Holy Death is, just like Sekhmet is, and I'm going to explain a little bit. We're going to pop around just a little bit, and of course, Set. Those weapons, just like the skith, they represent a clearing away, a separation, right? When you go to the story of Set, what is the story of Set, of how he was born? That he what? He just cut himself from the womb of his mother Nut, right? Is this the literal story? No, don't get caught up in the literalness of it. It represents an aspect of you. You need to cut away and separate yourself from all the bullshit that's holding you down, keeping you back. You need to cut away and separate yourself from the indoctrination that you've been programmed with. You need to cut away from all the religious mentality that you're struggling with. This is the only way you're going to evolve, grow, and benefit on this path. Okay? Kali, in its most rawest form, if you've ever done any invocation work with her, mantras, ritualistic work, however see fit, you will find, and I've mentioned this, brings a very aggressive type of change is the best way I can describe it. A tumultuous change. And you'll see a lot of people will say in books, and believe me, it's not overstating it, it's not exaggerating it. You will see a lot of people say in books, be very careful, working with Kali, be careful of how you approach it. Don't take that lightly, because I seen Kali, you always hear me say the term, be careful of what you want, because what you want and need are two different things. Sometimes we confuse what we want with what we need. And I found out that the Kali energy gives you what you need. And sometimes it's not. It can turn your whole entire life upside down. It can start to make you realize certain individuals may not be the right individuals for you, be it relationships, friends. You may start looking at things that you thought were good for you. You start to realize that's not really as good as I thought it was. That's the type of shit Kali will do. That's the type of shit the Holy Death will do. It makes you, that's why I said, when you keep hearing me say working with the death current is about changing and evolving. But the change that you are requesting, understand the difference between want and needs. Like, we all want a nice car, but that might not be a need right now, because you might have a whole bunch of personal shit going on around you that needs to be fixed. Could be your relationship, your marriage, your family life, your career, your job. So Kali will, in the Holy Death, will approach you like, look, you're asking for this mundane shit, but you got other shit that needs to be fixed and correct. So when you're invoking, understand what you're doing when you are approaching ritualistic work. How do you do that? How do you, make sure by being clear on your intent? Like, you don't go into any work and like, I'm looking, you got to be very specific. I'm looking to better myself. That's very mundane. That's very vague, right? You need to go into a work. Well, I need to work on my patience. I need to maybe work on my temper, or my finances is not right, or I need to create more commerce and business. I'm just giving you examples. This is called fueling your tent. If you want to, again, I always refer people, if you need a good blueprint to preparing rituals, how to fuel your intent, go into the book of Belial in the Satanic Bible and read the section on the satanic ingredients of black magic. You don't have to do it word verbatim. It gets into imagery. It gets into dress. It gets into altars. It doesn't mean it's the tell all, but I always refer people to that as a good tell all. And then it gets into one of the most preparation, fueling the intent, preparing your ritual. First and foremost, you must always ask yourself, is what I'm doing practical? Like, let me give you an example. You're not going to do a ritual, obviously, and say you might love music. I've talked about this before in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of people, don't have the talent they might think they have. Let's just keep it 100. Let's say you want to do a ritual to get a record deal or be a popular singer. You have to be practical with yourself. You must have some level of talent. Your magic isn't going to work if you can't sing at all. You understand? That's what I'm saying. When you sit down and you're planning your ritual as far as fueling your intent, purpose, you must also ask yourself, is this practical? Right? This is how you avoid failure in getting results. And this, in the same process, whether you're conscious of it or not, you are actually preparing yourself from avoiding failure. Because once you do the personal checklist, the personal inventory of yourself, you might find out after you sit down and start preparing the ritual, wait a minute, I got to change this up. This ain't practical. Now that I analyzed it, prepared it, fueled my intent, it doesn't make sense to me, right? So you're doing a bunch of different things when you're applying this method to yourself. You start to say, well, all right, I need to approach this better, because fact of the matter is, if I can't sing worth shit, even though I might, just because you like something, don't mean you necessarily can become very good or the master at it. Look, I love a lot of sports. I played baseball my entire life, growing up, football for a very long period of time. I like basketball. I can't play basketball worth shit because I always used to have problems on the court and getting into scuffles with people because I'd play very aggressive. I'm not going to play defense. I suck at playing basketball, but I'm not going to fool myself because I like it. Okay, that I'm going to convince myself that I'm great and the master at it. Now, does it mean you can't work at it and become better? That's what I'm saying. You must sit down and ask yourself that. Maybe you come to the realization that motivates you to get out on the court and practice your craft. That's my whole point. This is how you do the personal checklist on yourself. I'm telling you, if you have not read the Book of Belial and the Satanic Bible, I suggest you go read it. Right? This is how, because look, I'm not talking about where there's sometimes you gotta work magic on the fly, right? You know, there's going to be plenty of times where you can't sit down and plan everything. You know, usually that's a situation that's critical, and usually if your passion is there, and the intent is right, you're going to get the results. But that's a different type of energy. We're talking about something that you actually have time to plan out. It's a different energy. It's a different vibe. Did you visualize it here first before you carried it out? Or did you just go to your chamber room, a hot fucking mess, and just put some sloppy ass shit together? That's usually where, you know, conflict comes in mentally. The energy is off. Then you might find yourself as you're going through the ritual, just going through the motions. Because what's happening is the subconscious mind is not on the same page as the conscious mind. The subconscious is doing what it normally does, tapping into everything else that you're not aware of. The conscious is trying to make it happen, but it's just not working, right? These are all methods you can use, systems you can use and apply to avoid that. But as I was saying about these road clearing, the weapons, right? Before I get sidetracked, the tools you'll see them holding. Kali, the Pekibet knife, along with Sekhmet, okay? You'll see it also utilized with the Holy Death, but she's carrying a skip. They all represent the same thing. So how can you as an adept look at that and use that in your ritualistic work? Shit, I went out and got a big skip. I don't know if you guys saw it. I've showed it, I think, one time on altar. I got a big 4-foot skip, a symbolic replica skip that I put there because that's how powerful that image is when working with this particular archetype. So every time I gaze upon it, it communicates to my subconscious mind that, look, I can visualize the skip and I can focus on particular issues. I can focus on particular situations or scenarios, obstacles, challenges, situations or problems I might be dealing with at the moment. And I can use that skip in a multitude of ways to clear those paths. I keep trying to tell people, true adepts that have true power, black magicians that have true power, know how to use the power of their mind, okay? The imagery is great, and I'm all for it. I suggest you should get in the habit on a consistent basis. I know there's many other, methods to use magic on the fly, visualization. You can do magic anywhere. You can do magic in your bathroom. I told you, I do visualizations driving in my car on the way to work. That's a form of magic, right? You should, though, consistently experience the full-blown, ancient, old school, candles, bell, the bell, incense, the altar, icons, being garbed in ritualistic attire, because what that chalice, and the chalice represents so many different things when you ingest the chalice in your ritualistic work. And as I said before, I incorporate the chalice in majority of my full-blown ritualistic work I use, because That elixir can symbolize so many different things in many different ritualistic works. I like to always seal my ritual by drinking from the chalice. I'll take my Athenian and go counterclockwise 9 times over, and I'm charging it with the energy of my personal daemon. And I visualize as I'm drinking from that chalice, that elixir is permeating through my entire body, through my DNA. And what it does is it creates in your mind this raw power. And within that power, all these insights, knowledge, wisdom, the understanding, getting yourself to a level in here, or giving yourself an inner insight, or as we use the term we're using tonight, esoteric, which ties into this whole Gnostic concept. You should regularly, consistently, whether it's once a month, once every other week, once a week, you should do that full-blown magical ritual with all the imagery. That's one that you really plan out and do. It's important because there's unseen and seen forces at work in that particular. You just don't trust me when I tell you. You realize it afterward. There are a lot of unseen things at play. That what I mean by that is that you don't realize that are going on at the moment. And then what it tends to do is it will tend to hit you sometimes after the fact, because there was so many things going on simultaneously that were being absorbed. You just didn't catch it all on the fly. Trust me when I tell you, some of you just might have even experienced that many times before. All right. So all of these deities have those things in common, and it's not a coincidence. So now we can focus on the knowledge and the consciousness that's projected from these archetypes, right? In this case, the Holy Death. So now you need to stand back and look at the Holy Death and see what it speaks and communicates to your subconscious mind. This eliminates the tradition. So yes, you set up your standard altar. I like to decorate my altar with the Holy Death, and I've shown that in some videos in the past, with anything that's connected to the death current. Obviously, I have a bunch of different size skulls on there. I have a skull encased that I found in one of the hobby stores. It's encased in water. That represents a lot from a spiritual level when you know how to look at that. Skits, that like you see on the Grim Reaper image / the Holy Death. Then you see the globe, right? But we didn't talk about that image. You see her holding the planet. What does that represent to an adept? Now, I can only tell you how it represents to me. When I look upon that, I look at that as a symbol of being in control. When you see her holding the entire planet, now they'll give you the surface meaning. Well, that's the Grim Reaper death, the goddess of death. She comes for the souls. She collects the souls of all those on the planet. Right. That's the surface meaning. But place yourself in the equation. That also can symbolize to the adept as being the master and control of his or her universe. And that opens you up to the power of your subjective, right? It's how you look at this, right? Okay. We're talking about the Gnostic. And again, if you came on late, understand the difference between Gnostic and agnostic, right? Gnostic in a short term, where you can Wikipedia, Google it, whatever you want. You'll see what I'm telling you is similar. And not that Wikipedia or Google is the authority on it, but unfortunately, some people, if you don't take them to something mainstream, they don't believe shit you tell them. But a Gnostic person would be somebody that looks at the esoterical meaning of things, the hidden knowledge of things. And some Gnostics include themselves in the category that they have 100%, a belief, personal belief, that is, not a religious belief, in the existence of some supreme being. It sounds very Masonic in nature when you really think about it. That's the standard breakdown of a Gnostic. An agnostic really basically is somebody who takes the position you can't prove God doesn't exist and you can't prove God does exist, in a nutshell, right? And an agnostic kind of places themselves in the equation as being really, it's very, agnostic to me can be very Luciferian in nature. You could really apply both of those concepts to a mind state. To me personally, they connect to certain areas of Luciferianism because of what Luciferianism represents. What do I mean by that? The 100% belief that we have in a supreme being, that's us. Not a supreme being that's mythological, that resides in the sky, not a religious supreme being. So to me, that removes the concepts of a spooky faith belief being. So it depends on your perception and how you look at it. But we should approach in working with the holy death from that Gnostic perspective, in the sense of the esoterical hidden meaning, or the hidden knowledge that's encoded in what it represents. This is how you avoid getting stuck like Chuck and externally worshiping things. All right. It's that simple. I don't know how any other way to convey it, but you look at the skill. If you're confused on how to approach it, again, look, as you're sitting there doing your ritualistic work and your meditations and your visualizations, visualize that skiff removing from your mind those things specifically that might be confusing you or not clear. But specifically say, like, you can create a visualization, see the thought, and if you got to visualize the skiff going through the top of your head, coming through the entire front part of your forehead, visualize it as that's happening, it literally being removed. If you got to get that literal and that's what you need to do, you'll find some people do that and it's very effective. It brings about the change. But I'm going to tell you this, in doing change work, because I want to be clear on this, I've seen it turn people's lives upside down completely. They went into it with one intent, asking for the change that they needed to make their life successful and get on track. And then what tended to happen is a lot of people they had around them started to just disappear. I'm not talking about just physically dying. They just somehow disconnected from them. Could have been an argument that was supposed to happen. It could have been a certain situation or scenario, or that individual just might started to see that person for who and what they really are. And it might have changed the way you thought and felt. This is important to understand. When you're working with change and you realize sometimes, look, that's, remember, it also teaches you to see things for what they are, not for what you want to see them as. Understand that. That's what change does. So when you're asking for change, are you clear in what you're asking for? Because we have this bad habit of doing that. We want to see things how we want to see them only. But sometimes the hardest thing to swallow is seeing things for what they are. You know what I was saying? It's not always made out to what it seems to be, right? Like my mother used to say, all things ain't what they seem. Well, when working with this type of energy, the death current, working with these type of archetypes and deities, prepare yourself for that shit. Trust me when I tell you. This is how you grow and change. But don't run from it. Don't take on the mentality, my whole life is being turned upside down. Embrace it. Because this is the change you need to take it to the next level, the next step. You just might find out the person you've been laying side by side with for the last 5 to 10 years, that may not be the person or the right person you thought it was. Some people stay in relationships just because it's comfortable and it's normal. They stay in relationships because, just because you've been doing something so long, don't mean that makes it right. That doesn't mean shit, right? Oh, well, I've been with this person for so long, but you also had this inner voice that told you weren't happy, that something wasn't right, that for whatever reason, one part of you wants to leave, but then there's another part of you that makes you stay. Well, you need to figure out what that is, because that's a blockage. Usually it's insecurity and fear. That's what it is. Trust me when I tell you. And when you take on the change and you embrace it and make the decision to move forward, that's when the growth process actually starts. But if you just stay in something knowingly and you're not figuring out why you're miserable, why you're not happy, or why things ain't going right, or why your money is just jacked the fuck up, well, maybe it's the company you keep. Maybe it's the circles you move in. Maybe you suck at investing money. Maybe you constantly fall for scams and schemes, get quick rich schemes and pyramid schemes and hustles, right? I told you, if anybody approaches you with some type of make money scheme, ask them to prove a track record of results of how they make money. Because if they ain't got no money and ain't making no money, that's a red flag right there in itself. It's the first thing I do with somebody that comes at me with any type of investment or business proposition. I want to see a track record, right? I want to see a track record of some type of success, because if you can't produce that, then I can't trust you. See, sometimes it's as simple as doing little things like that, but seeing things for what they are and the change that you need, understand that, because you might find out and start doing this work. You thought you hated your job. You hate your job even more now because you realize you might just be going through the routine. How many people go through what we call their regular routine every day. It's the same boring shit. They get up like programmed robots. And again, I want to make this clear as I'm talking. I don't want nobody to misunderstand this information and get up tomorrow and quit your job. That's not what I'm saying. Some people, unfortunately, got fucking common sense. So you got to put that disclaimer out there. I'm saying make the transition and change. If you hate your job and what you're doing in life, make the transition. Figure out how you can transition over to do something you like, right? They say that old saying is when you're doing something you like, it's not work. You understand? It's that simple. You must find out and figure out what it is. Okay? You must find out and figure out what it is that one that you don't like, or one that maybe is making your life crappy or shitty. See, I always tell people step one is check your immediate surroundings, environments before you go spook. See, everybody always likes to think it's some deep spiritual problem. Like everybody likes to think that somebody's doing work on them. Everybody likes to think there's people out to get them. Everybody likes to think that, they've been done wrong, right? That's the victim mentality, right? That's the victim role. Let me play the victim. But nobody ever just takes any clear-cut responsibility. Sometimes it's just as simple as you made a bad fucking decision. It ain't even that deep. Maybe you just decided to roll with the wrong people. Maybe you just got with a motherfucker and you realize after the fact they weren't what you thought they were. They were really, the old saying is when you start to live with somebody or you've been with somebody for a while, you start to see them for really what they are, right? But the question I ask is, if you start seeing that person as fucked up, why do you stay? Because I get this all the time when I do client work with people. Get a lot of issues with personal relationships and et cetera. And I ask that question and you never get a clear-cut answer. You get this one all the time. I don't really know. Well, I can tell you, I do. And the reason why is because you're insecure. It's the fear of being alone or by yourself. Let's keep it real. Most people, look, we all know that one person, and you might be that person. How many of us, and it could be you, male or female, we know that one person that once a relationship is done or goes bad, they immediately jump into another one right off the bat. How many can relate to that? It could be you, right? You just got out of a terrible fucking relationship and you go jump right into another one. What does that tell you about the individual? They're insecure. The fear of being alone. First of all, I always tell my clients, when you come out of a horrible relationship, you need to take some time for yourself. It's not healthy to be in several years relationship and then go jump right into another heavy relationship. That's a sign of insecurity to me. Okay, you need to reflect and take time for yourself and get your shit in order before you go jump. And 9 out of 10 times, the same thing happens in the next relationship. And then they leave that one and they immediately jump into another one. We all know somebody like this, and it could be you. This might be you listening. This is how you detect things about yourself that you need to correct and work on. And what brings this awareness? Working, for an example, with the Holy Death. I'm telling you this because these are some of the awareness and awakenings, per se, that I've gone through over the years. And one thing I can tell you drastically, and I think I've mentioned this in past videos, the circle of friends that I kept for many years. I had to tear that shit down from front to back, going back from years ago. I don't talk to anybody I talked to probably 5 years ago, maybe even less. Because you are the company you keep. If you're hanging around unsuccessful people, you're going to be unsuccessful. If you're hanging around derelicts and lowlifes, you're going to be a derelict and a lowlife. If you're hanging around people that are doing drugs, you may not do them directly. You're going to be involved in that in some shape, form, or fashion. If you're hanging around with people that just like to party and go to the clubs and drink and hang out, you're going to be a partier person. And then the sad thing about it is you'll stand in that equation and deny it. Oh, I'm not like them. Then why the fuck are you hanging out with them? That's the next question. Why are you hanging out with them then? Because what, again, it shows is some insecurity and personal fear within yourself you have not addressed. It shows you can't be your own individual. Remember, working with these deities, especially the Holy Death wants you to be, and I say this symbolically, wants you to take on the persona of being your own fucking person. Same thing with Set. What does the isolated consciousness of Set represent? To be your own individual. You could use the term be your own god or goddess, not to be a conformist, not to follow what everybody's doing because it's the end thing. That's a high school mentality, right? Peer pressure, right? Are we still adults and we suffer from peer pressure? First and foremost, and I say this with 100% conviction, I couldn't give two flying fucks what anybody thinks about me and what I do. And I don't say that in a reckless, abandoned way. I show respect for people as long as they show respect for me and they stand, within their parameters. We don't go looking for people to try to destroy them and just badger them. That's ignorance. Even if I see something that's completely ignorant to me when it comes to knowledge, I'm not just going to be so ignorant myself and just go attack that person. As long as they stay in their lane and I'm in my lane, hey, I get it. You understand? But don't get upset if I don't agree with your concepts and your personal ideology. Just like I said last night's video, I don't expect you guys to agree with everything I teach on this channel. That would be crazy. So we can maturely agree to disagree and call it a night. It's that fucking simple. See, when you take that approach and mindset, right, your life becomes a lot more easier. So one of the things I always said on coming on this path, one of the first early steps you must take, you got to stop worrying about what people think about you. That shit is irrelevant. How you change that is by the example you set. So somebody might know you're on this path, right? Say somebody knows they're spooked out about this path. They think it's devil worship and Satanism because they're stupid and they're ignorant, right? But then at the same token, they see you on a daily basis. They see you living successful. You could be a family man or woman. You got a nice house. You're taking care of your family. You're productive in the community, whatever. That's your example. So they might say, well, I may not like that spiritual shit they deal with, but they are a productive individual. So they have to respect you. That's how you make the statement, by the example you set. Not like all these other fools and all these conscious groups getting on YouTube and arguing and bickering back, because it's become fuckery on the internet. All it is entertainment and feeding off of people's emotions. Just a bunch of hoopla, yelling, screaming. This one's attacking this one, and every other word out of their mouth is something negative about that person. That's all they do. They spend hours doing this. Because I know you look at the agenda, it's about hits. We all know being on the YouTube, we have shit. The hits you see on this channel are genuine hits. We're not manipulating the fucking hits. We can't. Those people get on you. Here's the fucked up part about it. Think about this shit for a minute. Those people get on YouTube because they rely on the hits from that Google AdSense check that you get when you have an X amount of advertisers on your channel. Now, compared to what I might get off of this channel is pennies compared to, say, somebody Sarnetta. Because when you look, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to drop the science for you. When you look and you see on any of these channels, 400,000 hits, there's ways to manipulate that shit. But these are people that depend on this for their very fucking livelihood. Now, here's the fucked up part about it. These are the same people telling you, get out of the system, stop relying on the white man for this and that, right? What if they came out tomorrow and they said, enough with this YouTube shit, we're cutting it off? How many people would be asked the fuck out? They'd be fucked in the ass with no Vaseline, right? Now, the difference is if they did that tomorrow, it wouldn't make a fucking difference for me because I don't depend on this shit. I have a livelihood that I've created myself that I can depend on regardless. This is just, a personal hobby that I love to do. I don't depend on YouTube for my livelihood. I don't depend on that Google AdSense check. You understand? But I find it ironic, the same people that are up in arms crying hoopla about this, the government and you must break away from the system and the white man is the devil and all this foolishness, but they're on the white man's platform saying this stupidity. This ain't controlled by black people. YouTube ain't controlled by black people. Facebook isn't controlled by black people, but black people love to get on there and talk a bunch of shit. What if they got up tomorrow and said, we're shutting it all fuck down? You know how many people would be asked out? They wouldn't know what to do with themselves because this is like an addiction to them. This is their artificial intelligence, their fake universe. See, I only use this as a tool and a platform to communicate with you people. It's that simple. I don't depend on this, so I couldn't give a fuck if they cut this off tomorrow, next week, or next year. It's irrelevant. But I find it funny of all these other people that the very thing that they're preaching to you, and I say preaching because there's a difference between preaching and teaching. Preaching is just a bunch of fucking yelling and rhetoric like the reverend and the pastor does, and these fools do. Teaching is something that's actually got a message you can apply. Okay? It's that fucking simple. How can they sit there and the very stuff they're trying to advocate and tell you not to do, they ain't even doing the shit themselves? They on the white man's platform. Think about this for a minute now. They're on the so-called white man's platform screaming that the white man's the enemy. And the white man's sitting back laughing. You motherfuckers are so fools. We're running all our advertisements on your videos. We're promoting how you can go onto an all black, pro-black channel, you know, black power and all that shit. You ain't got nothing but commercials and ads running on it. And they laughing because you on there talking shit, but yet you might be getting a couple of pennies and crumbs, but you know how much money YouTube is getting from the advertisers that are running commercials on your videos? Look, I'm gonna keep it 100% for you. That's the reality. And I don't hear nobody bringing this type of shit up when they're having debates, right? So they're getting on all these platforms making a fool of themselves. And the powers that be sit back and laugh because they laughing all the way to the motherfucking bank. That's a reality. I don't give a shit if anybody likes that or not. That's a reality. Okay? Anyway. Let me go through some comments. If you guys got any questions, you want to ask some questions, like I said, I popped on at the last minute. Let me make a announcement I was going to make last night. I know some people were familiar with the radio show that we used to do. So what I'm going to start doing is it's not going to be the old radio show because that's pretty much done. I've changed the name of the show. I'm going to link it into the YouTube channel. So some of the other listeners that used to tune into that will be connected to this. And we've changed the name to Primordial Chaos Radio. It's going to be a little bit of a different platform. We have a couple different hosts. I'll have more coming out on that in the next couple of days. I didn't want to go over that last night because some stuff. I was actually testing some stuff last night. I was actually testing some stuff tonight. And this is why I actually came on because I was linking the two, working with a few different things. But you'll see some notifications coming out for that. So we're again, it's not, I don't want people to confuse that with the old Awakening Universal Minds radio show. It's going to be on that same platform, TalkShoe. It'll be through the same link, but the name and the whole construct of the page has changed. You'll see it. It's going in a different direction. I just want to be clear on that. It's going to be kind of linked into here. Kind of connecting it to the channel because the new software that they have available, you can do that. With the old software, you weren't able to do that. So it just struck me to go ahead and connect the two. So you'll see more coming out with that shortly. But anyway, let's see what we got in the chat. So now if you got questions on, we'll finish up. I'll stay on for about another hour. You don't have to have just questions on this tonight because, like I said, this really wasn't a prepared topic or anything like that. It's just kind of a free fall. So Black Quartz, hey, how's your night? It's going to be as good as it's going to be. Appreciate it, brother. Mandela Born, peace, brother. Don't forget to keep me posted on what we talked about. All right. Papa Nieves, what's going on? I know you up in the midget strip clubs. Hope everything's good, man. I know you're working. I know you're busy, working, business, and all that. Sister Ikua, you need to start asking some questions. I told you about that. Stop just sitting back. I know you got questions. This is your time to ask questions. A lot of you email me, and some of you I talk to, on the excuse me, Google Hangouts message page. This is your time to ask questions if you're here, because obviously I don't have, I respond back pretty quick, but sometimes through the course of a day, it's hard to get right back. So if you're in here, this is your time to start asking some questions. That's the purpose of these videos. All right. And I know you got some questions, cool. You need to stop being shy and start asking them damn questions. Remember, stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. When I was saying those things before, you guys know who you are and you know who I was talking to. Okay. All right, Mumsu. Just like the invocation of the daemon is best when done from the heart and not as if from exactly drilling, man. You got to get out of the routine or the manual mindset. And that's a good point. That's actually an excellent point. Now, for an example, we talked about in past videos when I was doing videos on the demonic integration. I'm going to get back into some of that. I got some stuff I want to go back over that, some different stuff. Now, we've mentioned or we've all talked about this, and I've mentioned the book, The Black Ship, a bunch of different times in them older videos. And the ritual, you'll see a ritual in the Black Ship that was formulated per se to invoke your personal daemon. Now, understand this, the personal daemon is always there. It's not like you're bringing it from somewhere outside of yourself. Remember, it's always been there. It's never left. It's just you've lost the awareness how to activate it, right? So the ritual is designed to bring that awareness about again. So you're not activating something. You're not bringing something into existence that's not already there. It's there. It's always been there. Now, that particular ritual, I've done that ritual, but I've changed it drastically. I've added a whole bunch of different elements to it when I've done it. The chalice, for one, is not in the actual ritual you'll read in the book. I've incorporated that. The atheme is not in there. I've even used the black mirror in that ritual. And what I've done in that ritual is I use the black mirror as I visualize a porthole or a vortex type of energy opening, and I visualize myself going through the black mirror. And when I go in there, it represents, and what I see, man, everything is black trees, black branches, black swan. I know what it represents to the mind. I go through that. That's like the abode of the daemons when I go through. And I actually had a personal visualization of my personal daemon, and I saw an image, a Grim Reaper image, sitting on a throne, not necessarily the Holy Death. I think I've shown that on my altar. And right after I did that, I came across that image, and that was a message. So now when I look at that image, I could immediately take myself to that moment. That's what I'm trying to say. When you start to train the mind, that represents the abode of the daemon for me. And I could actually go there and communicate with my personal daemon. I actually get myself sucked through the black mirror. And the beautiful thing about it is the personal daemon is able to bring anybody forward that has passed on in my life. That could be my mother, my father, uncles, and I'm able to communicate with that too, if need be, per se. You'll find out the personal daemon is just the higher aspects of your subjective realm, right? The term daemon in the Greek, right? That was a term that the ancient Greeks used in their philosophy for the higher self, right? That's all it is. Not this demon that you see, demons and ghouls and possession. And that's all Christianity, Catholic bullshit to spook you the fuck out. Because I told you the term demon, D-E-M-O-N, that doesn't come into play till monotheism comes on the scene. Okay? That comes after the fact. I did a video a while back. What is the difference between, I spelled it so people could see it in the title. What is the difference between daemon, D-A-I-M-O-N, daemons, D-A-E-M-O-N, and D-E-M-O-N? They're from different languages, different meanings, and it's simple what they represented. It's when you get to the D-E-M-O-N is where you get spooked the fuck out. But not realizing, and you can pull it up on Wikipedia, I like to call it. They'll tell you, and they'll tell you the word, it got morphed from daemon, but that doesn't come into play till monotheism becomes a prominent religion. And the word demon came from that, but it got ostracized. The meaning of it changed. It got separated as something that was evil or wicked outside of yourself, some demonic force that has control over you. Whereas that was the mistake. The real meaning of daemon meant the higher self, the real you, that high intelligence, that raw power, or as we use in modern day terms, the god or the goddess that dwells within. That's it. It's that fucking simple. But the demonic integration, again, back to that particular ritual in the Black Ship book, in reference to Mumso's question, yes, use it as a blueprint or a map. It's okay. That's what you should use it for. But you should add your own elements to it. You've heard me say that for years. Never copy the exact aspect of it in the manual. Change whatever you see fit. You should just look at it as it gives you a good guideline and an example. So now it should spark you to create something from it. Not that you need it, because you could sit down now with certain things when you start gaining experience and just create it from scratch. Like a lot of the rituals that we'll do down here, pretty much all of them might incorporate different elements from different things, but they're created from scratch. The Black Mass of Set, from scratch. It's not something you're going to find written in a book somewhere. Was it influenced by works prior to it? Of course. That sparked the motivation. But format, how it's worded, you're not going to find that anywhere written in a book. I'm trying to show you the examples of both aspects of that, okay? But that's an excellent point. All right, be like water. La Santísima Muerte helped me win $250 on a scratch or a Florida lottery. Shit, you need to send me about 15 to 20. Hey, that's what, look, one thing I can tell you about Santísima Muerte, when they say it's a jealous spirit, I don't look at that in a bad way. It's a very commanding and powerful energy. When they say you shouldn't mix it and put it with any other of your altars, because it can cause conflict, I'm telling you it does. In here, it's not talking about some external conflict. Like I said, I one time had it with some other stuff a couple years ago, and couldn't understand why I was getting massive migraine headaches. When I would walk into my altar room by it, I'd get this confusion energy, and then it was crystal clear. And then I realized I was getting it every time I went past the Holy Death. And that was the message to me, take that shit out of there. Because what you got to understand, when you start working with these forces, it activates a certain portion of your psyche. It opens your subconscious mind up to a whole bunch of different energy. And if you're not prepared to facilitate it and deal with it, it can come across sometimes like in those forms. Some people get those physical ailments and they go to the doctor and they run all these tests and they can't find nothing wrong with the person, because sometimes it's a spiritual thing. Now, I want to say that, don't get spooked, because some people get fucking spooked. I'm saying anytime you have ailments, let me make this clear. Eliminate the physical things first before you go spiritual. Because anybody that knows me, I'm a realist, and I'm going to be as real with you as I can. Anytime I deal with clients and I'm doing consultation work, and if they're coming to me with a specific problem, I try to alleviate all the common sense things first. Like, I get people, again, I keep people's situations private, so I ain't going to say any names. I'll get people that'll come to me, they're hearing voices or stuff in their house, and it could be. But let's cover all of the, I'm sitting here, I can talk to you right now. If you see me constantly looking over to the left, because every time I keep my father's little shrine there to the left, you'll see shadows out of the corner. That's just normal shit. Because when you activate, if you're working with, especially if you're doing ancestral type of necromancy, remember, you're conjuring up those spirits and energies. It's kind of gets to, look, I've literally woken up out of the sleeping on this very couch that I'm sitting on right now watching TV. And I've literally woken up to seeing black misty images. It's got the aura of a person, no face or nothing like that. And it's just walking right across the living room into the dining room area. I know what it is, because once you open yourself up and the communications are clear, you're able to identify and say, that's the spirit of my father. That's my mother, or that's this particular individual. I'll be laying in the bed, same thing. Get woken up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning by the spirit of my father, because it's still new. Because he, like I said, it'll be what? January 29th will be a year. You understand? So it's still new. But when you've activated that energy and you're in sync with it and you're working with it, you understand? All right. But anyway, Trina Hurt, peace. Don't forget Saturday, Trina. Everybody that's in here that's taking the class, remember Saturday is the last one for this session. I just want to remind everybody. I know some of you are in here right now. And then a reminder, end of March will be the next session. All right. I will get information out. I have usually to the people I have and newer people, I create an email list. You will all get it. If you aren't on that list, or I may not have you on the list, send me an email stating you want the info for the end of the March session. I'll send you all the information. Everything is self-explanatory. And then you'll see when you get the email, you'll see. I have finished the curriculum as of a couple of days ago. On the last video I did, which was sometime over the weekend, I had a couple final touches to put on. It is done. I will get it out. Like I say, this is the last week of the current session we're in, and I'll get that out ASAP. It's going to be a good one. Notice I'm enjoying the one we're finishing up now. Here's another science. When you're talking, I want to talk about talking and silence. Right? I want to say two things about this. Then I'm going to go back to your questions. Listen to yourself talk. When I'm talking, I listen to myself talk. You can even learn from yourself when you listen to yourself talk. If you can't do that, something's disconnected there in itself. Pay attention to yourself. All right. When you're talking, I say that because when we're doing the private classes, because it's a more personal setting, I learn a lot, not just from myself, but in the interaction. Like I said, if Trina's still in there, she understands what I'm talking about. It's a different vibe. It's a different energy, but I'm learning when I sit back and listen, because we get a lot of personal feedback. Everybody, we're face to face and everybody has a chance to talk and express themselves. I learn a lot from that too. So it's a beautiful thing because it's not just classes for you guys or for whatever people come along down the road. It's actually, I'm learning by watching others. And the unique thing I'm learning from it is, to me, it's amazing to see everybody's approach. That's how I learn. And sometimes it inspires me. I might use an example that I heard from one of you guys, and it motivates me to do something. That's called learning from each other. You understand? And it's a beautiful thing. So it's interesting to me to watch the different methodologies and approaches by way of the questions. Like, there's a lot of work that people do in these classes, and then when in between the periods when we come back, everybody shares, the ones that have done some of the work, share their experience with everybody. And we'll go around the entire room, everybody that's in the class, and they'll share. But I'm going to tell you this, the classes that I do, it's work. And if you're taking the classes, you're going to do some work. This ain't just a class with a bunch of talking like this. It's work. All right. And you come away from every class with some type of work you need to do. Now, I also follow it up and say with this, I couldn't give a fuck if you do it or not. That's not my job. I'm not going to make you do shit. And I tell everybody that in the class. And nobody gets ostracized for doing it or not doing it, because you're only cheating yourself if you don't do it. But you will walk away from the class being a better magician, and you'll be able to take this information and use it for yourself. Trust me when I tell you. And again, talking about it does a disservice. Take the class for yourself. It kind of speaks for itself. All right. But anyway, what else we got? Oh, peace, brother Gene. Gene asks, can you use sigils when working with her in a ritual? Yes, she has her own sigil. If you've ever seen, you can Google it. Matter of fact, Gene, if you're still on here, just go to Google right now and Google the Holy Death or La Santísima Muerte sigil. It looks very similar to Papa Legba. I mean, I could probably pull it up and share the screen, but I really don't feel like doing it. But if you're at your computer, or open another screen or go on another device, and you will see it. The beauty of it is when you look at the Papa Legba sigil, you see the 4 crossroads with the arrows on the end of each one, the points. And then Papa Legba sigil will have the cane on the right? Again, another tool. I forgot to mention that. You'll see almost the Holy Death says the same thing, but she has the skiff on the right. So most definitely you can use sigils. Now, you don't have to just use her sigils, but one I want to address, yes, she has a particular sigil that you can work with in general because it represents opening paths, roadways. Now, you can use any sigil that is in accordance with the same energy that you're working with. Remember, if you're working a ritual or a magical working, you have to use a sigil that's conducive and represents the same energy and consciousness of the ritual you're working. As long as you stay along those lines and those principles, you can use whatever you want. But make sure it's in accordance with the energy of the ritual. You don't want to go off the cusp and use something that can create conflict, because if sigils communicate messages to our consciousness, We don't want to communicate the wrong messages in a particular ritual for a specific intent. You understand? So yes, the answer to that question is yes, but it's a good question. Peace, Sister Maeve. Lady Shalise, good evening. I did respond. Oh, yeah, you confirmed. I did respond back to your question, and don't forget to keep me posted on the work that you're doing and what we talked about. All right, so keep me posted on that. My LL Bay, peace. All right, be like water, Brother Beniti. I understand the Luciferian and left-hand path of viewing the deities as left-hand path, but I was curious if my views are not in line with left-hand path. I do believe, in a great architect, the name Mason's, the grand architect of the universe. Okay. But to me, the great architect is the all of the Kabbalion, or formless and exist in no dimension or time. That's fine. But let me say this. The way you described it. See, one of the things I say in my invocations every morning, I give homage and respect to the grand architect of the universe. May the grand architect of the universe bestow upon me divine guidance and blessings and protection, and lock me and open me up to the divine conscious of all, so I can reach my divine potential and purpose on this planet. And then I say, Hail Set, Prince of Darkness. I have a whole format with that. But the way what you're describing right there, I wouldn't necessarily view that as religious. So remember, there is no particular methodology that's in line with left-hand path of Luciferianism. It's what you make it. I don't see that as being an aesthetic. I see that more, you're describing a certain energy and consciousness. I think the problem comes in, and then when you're using the term you described in your question, not in accordance with left-hand path. Well, the first question I would have to pose, according to whose views. Remember, a Luciferian, if we're going to use the Luciferian template or mindset, the first thing a Luciferian understands is that everybody's not going to see things the way we see them, but we still acknowledge and respect that person's right to do and view it as they see fit. Even if I don't agree with something, I do understand there's different perspectives. And I also understand that the individual has a right to perceive and apply it how he or she sees fit. But I also have a right to respectfully voice my disagreements with it, if so be. Just like Be Like Water, you in the most professional manner had an opposite or an opposition or your own viewpoint on it, and you expressed it. If that works for you, that works for you. But you use the term you apply it more like how a Mason uses it. A Mason, like I say, in order to be a Mason, the main thing they'll tell you in the interview process, you must acknowledge the existence of a supreme being. Now, remember, in the Masonic Lodge, you can't say the word God, Jesus. You can't specify by any name. And there's a reason for that. There's two rules in the lodge you can't do. You can't talk religion and politics. It's a no-no. You can get actually booted out of the lodge if you get into political or religious debates. So when you say I was talking about last night, play on words and that whole breakdown with the 5% stuff. You got to remember there's a play on words. So the question is, how does one perceive when you hear the word supreme being, right? If you look up the word being, it means existence. That's all it means. Go look it up, the English word, to be. The word be comes from being. As I said last night, we got to start doing our due diligence on the etymology and the phonetics of words. So be and being are connected, right? Being, they'll tell you, if you pull the basic definition up on Wikipedia, it'll tell you to be, to exist. They'll use something along those lines. So when you say a supreme being, you're saying a supreme existence, right? Supreme existence of what, right? Then you described consciousness, right? I would refer people back to Dark Light Consciousness by Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum, who I was actually just talking to, and I plan to get him to come on real, probably in the next week or two. Go back and read his book. Understand, I would liken this, what you said, that consciousness or that supreme being or the grand architect, right? Because when you hear the term GOAT, right? You'll see that abbreviation, greatest of all time, right? You also see abbreviated the grand architect of the universe, GAOT, you'll see that in Masonic literature abbreviated, right? So the grand architect of the universe is in essence you. It's you when you tap into that consciousness and energy because it permeates and flows through you. What am I talking about? I mentioned Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum's book, Dark Light Consciousness, right? Dark light consciousness, he talks about all that dark matter, neuromelanin, and he talks about neuromelanin being the facilitator and conductor, how you're able to receive and perceive that information. It's one of the key components of how one receives that information. Your neuromelanin links you into all of that consciousness that permeates the universes, I should say, not just universe, right? And what does the word universe mean? The word uni is Greek and one. The English language is a language of fuckery and confusion. The word uni or uni is one. So it's saying one, we know there's more than one universe, right? Especially when you tap into the power of the subjective. So the neuromelanin is what's the key for you to receive what you just described, right? The grand architect of the universe, receive those messages, be linked in to this concept of God, however you see fit, right? Now, when the neuromelanin is jacked the fuck up, you can't receive the messages, right? How do you know the neuromelanin is jacked up? Well, one, if you're outside all the time and the sun bothers you, that's a telltale sign. I'll tell you why I'm saying that. If you are constantly sleepy and tired all the time, I'm not talking about if you're up early. It's normal to be up early, work all day, and feel tired at night. I'm talking about even when you're rested, and these are all telltale signs the neuromelanin is out of whack, right? Because remember, every portion of your body, every organ, kidneys, your liver, your pancreas, all of it is encoded in this neuromelanin. It's without it, you won't survive. And what destroys this are synthetics, right? A lot of synthetics that we ingest disconnects this, right? In turn, what does that also do? It calcifies the pineal. This all filters out. Now you can explain, this all filters out to the dysfunction of your chakras. Because look at the neuromelanin as the substance that keeps those quote unquote antennas up and running to receive the messages, right? When the antennas aren't open to, like, all right, look at it like this. You know, the old radios, the dial radios we used to turn. Remember, you used to have to turn the knob just to get it to the right point, to get the right frequency, right? Look at your brain is the same way. When the neuromelanin is out of whack, you can't tune the station in just right to get the frequencies. Because what you're describing, and I'm going to tell you how I've tapped into that. That's the only way I can tell you. That's what the grand architect of the universe in actuality is. Now, you may not perceive it like that, but I don't look at what you described as being monotheistic. So if that works for you, that works for you. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. Now, when you say also the great architect is the all of the Kabbalion, right? Now, remember, yes, when you're reading the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti, for further breakdown on that, and you might have, I'm just throwing it out there, not just for you, but others, you also might want to go read the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti, because that's really, in my opinion, a continuation of that breakdown. The Emerald, and I would also recommend a book, Roger William Huck, Alchemy for Personal Transformation, the Emerald Tablets. I actually know Roger William Huck. He's actually a Rosicrucian. If you read the book, there's little signs and hints he drops in there. He has written many books. He considers himself an alchemist. I've actually met him at the Grand Lodge in San Jose, California. He is a Rosicrucian. He's been a Rosicrucian for many years. And he's actually spoken at Rosicrucian events. He speaks at a lot of Grand Lodge functions. But he writes in a neutral, he doesn't write just for Rosicrucians. So when you look at his work, he's actually writing for just anybody. But to really understand that concept, and shit, now that you're saying this, make me even want to do a whole video on this shit. But go back and read that. If you might have it, I don't know, maybe you do have it, but it's a continuation of the all or the one thing. And what Tahuti focuses in on that is the one thing. What is the one thing? Well, when you're done understanding the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti, you understand that there's a section in there where it talks about when man names God, he creates another God in doing that. Think about that shit for a minute. When man gives God a name, he creates another God in doing that. Some people really can't comprehend that because they look at it and go, I get it, but I don't get it. I'm going to put that out. Think about that for a second. He shows you the above and the below, the within, the without, and how really, in essence, we got to stop thinking there's a separation. Even the planes, right, what we call the spiritual planes. We got to get out of this illusion that it's these fictitious layers that start here and start to rise up. Remember, the spiritual realm is interwoven around you. It's around you at all times. Look at that there's a veil there or a wall, and you just are not able to penetrate the wall, right? It reminds me of that song, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Look at it as this way, right? When you look at a thermometer, right? At what point does the temperature go from frozen, from Fahrenheit to frozen, right? Celsius. At what point does that happen? And can the naked eye detect it? Can you see it and feel it? You can in degrees and vibrations, but you really don't know when it happens. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And think about it. When you look at the thermometer, at what point can the naked eye detect the transition from below freezing to above freezing? What do they say in the Masonic laws, right? When you become 32nd degree, you're what? You're frozen. You might have heard that term before because you're bringing all this up, this grand architect, masonry, alchemy stuff, because now you got this shit running through my head. But that's what they say. When a Mason becomes 32nd degree, he's frozen, right? He's at a certain state of stasis. You know what I liken that to now on this path? That reminds me of the sixth angle. What's the sixth angle in the 9 angles when you go into the Satanic Bible? The sixth angle represents stasis and death. It's not just talking about a physical death. It's also a mental, emotional, and a spiritual death. But that death, this is all ties in. This is a beautiful thing. Death, right? Death brings about great change in moments of suffering, pain, hardships, obstacles, and blockages, right? There's tremendous. Come here, buddy. Come here. You going to bed? All right. Love you. All right. All right, bye. I'll see you later. In those periods of hardship, all that, there's tremendous growth. That's also what the sixth thing. I did a video on that a while back. Sixth thing, stasis, stagnation, death. Death is not just a physical thing. It means so many different things. That's what a Mason, when he becomes 32nd degree frozen, he must now decide where he is in his level of learning and understanding. The 33rd degree, which is just Inspector General, Grand Inspector General, is an honorary degree that you have to be approached for it to be conveyed upon you. You can't petition or become it. There's a reason for that, right? Then you get into the 33rd degree. Yeah, you can get into all the symbolic, esoterical breakdowns of 33 and all that, whatever. But the whole point being is when you read the Emerald Tablets and Tahuti, if you have not, or if anybody has not, understand that's like a continuation of those 7 Hermetic principles. Because Tahuti was the scribe. He dealt with wisdom, right? So when you want to, one thing I work with Tahuti with is, what I'm saying, how do you think I get this level of understanding and knowledge? By doing work, by tapping into the awareness of it. You will find out when you start doing ritualistic work with Tahuti, you'll be having conversations and answers just naturally come to you. It could even be shit you never even talked about. I'm telling you, this shit is a reality. That shows that your magic is working. Because one thing I know, and I say this not in arrogance, I say this with 100% confidence. I could stand in any circle and have a conversation about anything. I don't care what it is. I could talk sports. I could talk politics if I had to, religion, spirituality. I can go in any, that's Luciferian by nature, okay? I can go in any circle. You want to talk about fucking paper crochet? I'll talk to you about that, okay? I'm just saying. I'm trying to give an example. That's what the grand architect of the universe represents. But I'm saying we can be here all night. But I might do something on that because it's sparking me to think about some other shit, all right? All right, what else we got? I don't know if you retyped it, Gene. Can you? I think I answered your question, but yes, you can use this sigils when working with her in ritual. I don't know if that was a double type. Okay, Oni says, my daughter brought me a owl wall decor before I got my black holy death. Oh, that's a good thing. I mean, it could have so many different personal meanings and symbols to you personally. But remember the owl, right? You even hear amongst the elite, the order of the owl, right? They meet secretly, order of the skull and the bones, right? But why skull and bones and why the owl? See, the ignorant just looks at it as something, oh, they doing some Illuminati satanic stuff. Look, if you're still on that social media conspiracy theory shit, first of all, first thing I ask a person, and they say, yeah, you know, Donald Trump's in the Illuminati, or this person. How the fuck do you know that if you're not in the Illuminati? Where'd you get that from? The first time Jay-Z and Beyonce, they're in the Illuminati. First thing I ask a person that says some stupid ass shit like that, first and foremost, where are you getting that information from? Second of all, are you in the Illuminati? Then how the fuck do you know that? Well, because you see in the video, they threw up this hand signal with the horns and then the three, and then they did this. That's 666. Look, that's some kindergarten surface fucking bullshit. I don't care about that. You understand? That's nonsense. Because the only answer you can give me to all that rhetoric is you just heard it. Somebody said it. You read it somewhere in a book. I'm not asking you that. There's a bunch of shit out there that people are saying. I'm saying, what concrete evidence do you have to support the statement that you're making? You know how many people come to me and say Jay-Z and Beyonce and the Illuminati? What evidence can you? I deal with a Luciferian mindset. I need evidence. I can't listen to your personal opinion. Now, do you belong to some Illuminati group? Were you at some particular ritual where you saw them doing what you're describing as Luciferian and satanic? If you weren't, then you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Stop talking shit. Okay, it's that simple. That's how I deal with people. I'm not into being. That's why I told you this social media, internet is a cursing and a blessing at the same time. It's a blessing because we can, and not a religious blessing, a blessing of knowledge and understanding to the point where we can reach millions of people simultaneously, right? But it's a curse because bottom line is this has become some people's addiction. This is their life. This is why the kids ain't active no more in society. This is why they all sit around on the couch playing video games and on their phones. There's no such thing no more as go outside and play. Remember that when we were kids, go outside and play. What the fuck does that mean today? I'm even starting to notice it when I go back home to New York. You don't see as many kids out on the street playing no more. When we grew up as kids, there's kids out on the street playing stickball, stoop ball, handball. We were down at the field, either on the basketball courts, playing football, baseball on the field. That's what we did. When the summer came, shit, you couldn't even find me in the house in the summertime. And if I hung around the house, my father would find some shit for me to do. Oh, you want to hang around the house? Go clean the motherfucking garage. That's how we grew up. Summertime came when I was a kid. I got up. First thing I did was grab my glove, my bat. We was down playing pickup games from dawn to dusk. My mother would have to yell down the block to get me in the house. You couldn't find us at home. We'd be down at the roller skating rink. Let's go to this place called Hot Skates in New York. We go there to roller skate and break dance. You understand? You couldn't find us anywhere home in the house. These kids don't know what now these motherfucking kids just want to sit on the couch like fucking dead zombies, and is all they do. Is all you see. I even go to restaurants and I watch families sit down. They can't sit down for more than 2. I've seen families of 5 and 6 sit down at a restaurant, no more than 2 minutes sitting down. Oh, look at all everybody's this. 5, 6 family members at the table. They're all on the phone. We've lost that human connection, that natural connection with life in the universe. This has become our virtual reality, right? And this, when used improperly, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's very beneficial. Think about this, right? I'm going to go real old school on some of you motherfuckers now. Remember back in the day when you had to go search for a job, you actually had to get dressed. And if you didn't have your own car, you had to get on a bus or a subway and actually physically go into places. Hey, can I speak to the manager? Are you guys hiring? Can I fill out an application? You remember them days? These kids ain't got to do that shit no more. Now everything's online. Let me just fill out an application online. Let me sit and wait for some shit to happen. Back then, we had to go out there and make it happen. I remember years ago as a young man searching for a job, I'd be out there from the dusk, from morning till night. I might have to hit 6, 7, 8 places, and it'd take all day. Now these kids, they sit at home, fill out an application online. Somebody will call me. Wasn't like that back in them days. That's why the mentality is different. That's where the generation gap is in mindset. That's how we were raised. Go outside and play don't exist no more. What the fuck is that? Don't exist. They'd rather be locked in to their gadgets and tools of technology, which that's a bad thing. Okay. That's a bad thing. I just don't see it. I go home. Yeah, I still see kids out and about. Yeah, I still see kids on the basketball court. I don't see kids running the streets. I mean, we used to play running bases, Ringalivio. Remember RCK, we created our own fucking games. And we stayed busy all day doing it. You know what that does? It creates and incites a certain amount of creativity. We lost our creativity. Same thing with music, right? When hip hop music came on the scene, it was like, it was monstrous to us because it was like something that was self-created. And if you grew up in a neighborhood where there was artists, like where I grew up in right on the border there in Long Island, Queens, right on the border, Nassau County there, when we had artists that like Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, EPMD, K Solo, Keith Murray, who's from West Islip, right? When these artists were coming out, Biz Markie, right? I used to run into Biz Markie at the White Castle in West Hempstead all the time. They used to act, that's when I was talking about snapping last night. That was one of my first encounters ever running into him, right? It was like to see somebody in your area come up like that. Like that's how I mentioned in videos a while back. That's how I got sparked to want to learn about the 5% Nation was from Rakim's second album, Follow the Leader. And if you remember the cover, he's sitting on the car and he's wearing the universal flag. He's got the jacket with the universal flag on, right? That's what sparked me to learn. That was my first introduction to spiritual consciousness was hip hop, right? I'm sure a lot of us were inspired by it when we go through the music, right? All that whole era. Think about it. I'm bringing the music up to show you because it stimulated our intellect and our creativity. So they saw that shit and they said, no, we're going to turn this into pimps and hoes and selling dope and slapping hoes and partying and popping crystal. Now the music is disgusting. It's fucking pathetic. There's no creative. This is just my opinion. I ain't trying to knock the new generation. I can't even understand what half of these motherfuckers are saying on the songs, honestly. Maybe I'm getting old. I couldn't even tell you what Lil Wayne says when he raps. I can't understand a word. And then you got, no offense, but I got caught for, then you got these little soft marshmallow bitches singing and rapping. Everybody wants to be Drake now. That's not rapping. Stop. But back then, we were coming up on shit like PE, Positively Black, Brand Nubian, Masters of Ceremony. Some of y'all probably don't even remember Masters of Ceremony. Masters of Ceremony was actually, Grand Poobah was one of the original members of that before he was a member of Brand Nubian. I'm going back to some old shit now, right? Busy Bee, right? The Battles in the Park, Tila Rock. What most of y'all might not know, LL Cool J actually got his style from Tila Rock, right? If anybody was back there during them times to some of the parties in the park, St. Albans and all that shit at the time, that's who really, if go Google Tila Rock and look at his style and look how he dressed, Kango, chains, go look at it. You can pull shit up. Tila Rock had his little run in the 80s. He never made it as big as LL, but if some of y'all are up on your hip hop knowledge, you'll know who Tila Rock is. But I'm bringing all this up to say the music was given to us. It sped up our intellect and our creativity. It tapped into the divine. Think about elements of hip hop, b-boying, DJing, graffiti, rapping, or MCing, I should say, not rapping. There's a difference between being an MC and a rapper, by the way. That's a whole nother story. But the whole point being is it was a culture, a way of life, and it embodied certain elements that enhanced our creativity in that whole process. All right. This is important because now look what you got. I'm sorry to say shit. I really couldn't name a lot of the modern day groups. Oh, I do know it all sounds the same. That shit sound that sing along doopy dee doopy dee beat. A dubby dee dubby dee boo. A booby dee bobby dee bop. That shit is not fucking music. That's some old kiddie cornball shit. And everybody ain't doing the same shit. I see when I'm flipping through the channels, I see, everybody flashing their jewelry in every video, gold fucking teeth, throwing money in the club, drinking. I mean, can we do any? Think about back then when you name artists. Back then, let me show you what I mean about creativity. Back then, every rapper had their own style. When I say Heavy D and the Boys, Slick Rick, Dana Dane, Salt and Pepper. They were considered party rappers, right? They were more party entertainer type rappers. When I say Public Enemy, X-Clan, Brand Nubian, Tribe Called Quest, they were more conscious, knowledgeable type of quote unquote rappers, right? Eric Rakim, right? Etc. EPMD, technically back then, they would be considered, we didn't use gangster rappers back then, really. That wasn't really the term till a few years later. They were hardcore rappers, right? EPMD would have been considered a hardcore artist. K-Soul would have been considered hardcore, right? Then you had Boogie Down Production. That would be considered street knowledge hardcore. Because when those first BDP albums came out, he was dropping street knowledge, but he was throwing a lot of consciousness in there. So none of the rappers really they weren't all biting off each other. Now, you can turn on the radio, it sounds like there's 8 Drakes on the radio. They all sound the same. It sounds like there's 8 Lil Waynes simultaneously, because now these A&Rs are getting these guys to mimic each other, because they're now dictating to the masses what they're going to accept, buy, and sell. These kids don't even know what the fuck they're listening. I run into kids, I just like the beat. So I say they could be talking about killing and destroying and and you don't even know what the fuck they're saying. I've literally had kids tell me they don't even know what the fuck they're saying. They just like the beat. Mission accomplished. That's what I'm trying to talk about. They've cut off all the creativity. Anyway, don't get me started on that, because I got a lot of personal views on the music. I love music, and I listen to all types of music. I listen to old school R&B, not too much of the new school R&B, old school hip hop, underground hip hop. I like classic rock from the 70s. Yes, I do. And don't front. There's some groups from the 70s that have a lot of rhythm and blues in it. You got to understand music. Old Led Zeppelin, go listen to it if you haven't. Rolling Stones, go listen to some old Stones. Pink Floyd, go listen to some of that shit and listen to the creativity in it. And by the way, a lot of the rappers sampled a lot of that shit. You just don't know it. When you hear some of the songs, you'll understand it. I love the 70s R&B era, right? A lot of creativity in there. OJs, Stylistics, Blue Magic, Main Ingredient, right? Go listen to some of the shit that Earth, Wind, and Fire, of course, the Floaters, right? Go listen to some of that shit and compare it to the shit you're hearing now. There's no more R&B. All the R&B artists today they're hardcore wannabe thug rappers now. Every R&B, you look at them, it's funny. They're all thugged out, and then they bust out into some melody. It just doesn't look right, man. I'm sorry. It's just me. Maybe it's my age. I don't fucking know. Maybe it's my age. Okay, what else we got? Lady Shalise. Oh, no, I'm back with one above you. I'll get right back to you, Lady Shalise. Todd Hellman, Athena's owl. Good point. Yeah, in reference to the owl. No matter, you'll find the owl on many different levels of knowledge, information, spiritual systems, but it always represented some higher aspect of wisdom, right? And especially with the Holy Death, you'll see many images with her with the owl. But we got to start asking that question. Remember, the symbolism is what communicates the message to the mind. But yes, another good point, Athena's owl, confirming the concept of the owl. Lady Shalise Simmons, after our conversation a few days ago, I dug into finding out as much information as I could find out about Mother Holy Death, then went into myself and home and have many items she holds scared. I think maybe you meant to say sacred, or maybe that was a misspell. Then went into myself and home and have many items she holds. I think you meant sacred. I think it was just a spell check. But yeah, I mean, and just to be brief, not to get into it. Me and Lady Shalise Simmons had a consultation session a few days ago, but I'm glad to hear that, and keep searching and keep doing what you're doing. Todd Hellman, a powerful message this evening. Appreciate it, brother. Lady Shalise Simmons, seems like Oya has said yes, and that's a good observation. Oya does have a very similar energy. Now, I'm glad you see. Also, we need to start paying attention on this path, synchronizations with other archetypes and other systems that are similar. Yes, you can. Oya is connected to the cemetery. She's connected to the spirits of the dead. She represents what? One of her aspects in nature she represents is what? The tornado, right? What does a tornado do? It brings a whirlwind of destruction. It just removes. Oya is a road clearing energy too. It removes anything in its path. The tornado, right? They refer to her as a tornado when they correlate her to an element in nature, right? She's also a warrior. When you understand the Pataki or the stories of Oya in the Yoruba pantheon, right? She was loyal as fuck, right? If that's the type of female I would look for as an example, embodies the divine feminine when it comes to the physical, but it also, she's not soft. She's a warrior type of energy. She stayed loyal to Shango with all the bullshit Shango did. Now, focus on the symbolics. It doesn't mean be a pushover weak. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like whatever she laid claim to was her. She would go to any length to do whatever she wanted for it. That speaks of a strong mentality for an individual. But remember, when she went in, who was the first one to go into war and lead the battle? When you read the stories with him, it was her, right? So yes, it's very similar. Oya is that type of energy. Another energy you don't want to fuck around and play with. And very similar to Kali too, as far as aggression and power. Very similar. So all that's connected. That's a good observation. So I definitely would agree with that. Oh, look who showed up. The Blue Wrench is here. Okay, what else we got? Yvette, which deity would be good at helping you find your gifts? Well, good question. And here's the answer. All of this really permeates from what we call the black flame. And when you tie it all into the concept of the deity that permeates that black flame, and from that black flame comes what we call the gift of Set. Set is what you really need to tap into, because all of this is just aspects of what we call the Prince of Darkness, right? And the real Prince of, I say the King of Darkness is really Set, right? Or the adversary, as they say in religion. Some call it in modern day terms and falsely have the wrong concept, Satan or the devil. Remember when I did the Luciferian video, I was trying to point something out. That fault, when you read the story in the Bible of Lucifer being cast out of the heavens and the 200 fallen angels falling with him, that was your story when you actually awoke. See, they played words on the story and fed it to you and gave you this bullshit religious concept. Really, that represents your awakening. That's all that story is, right? And that's why it's correlated to this character, Lucifer, Satan, the devil. But when you go into ancient Egypt, right, when you understand, when you could actually trace it to a culture and a documented information, that would be Set. And Set is that foundation. Look at Set as the foundation for all of this. Don't look at Set, I'm not saying to look at Set as a most high deity like you would in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. It's not what I'm saying. All of this permeates from what Set represents. He was the foundation for all of this shit. And I'm saying he in reference to what he represents. Because remember, when you're seeing a personification of them in the masculine and the feminine and the physical, that's just for you as the human mortal to grasp onto it. So you see him personified as a man, he's a man, but most of these beings are androgynous. They can take on any form they want. And there's been many incarnations of them over many different years and many different cultures and spiritual systems. That's why you can synchronize Oya with Holy Death, etc. You're talking about remember, when we're saying these are energies, vibrations, and frequencies, they can manifest in any shape, form, male, female, young, old. That's what androgyny represents. We have to understand that. So to really get a little more detail in your question, your gifts, it just depends on what areas of your life you're working on, because all of these energies can bestow certain gifts and qualities on you. But I think the core foundation, one, the most powerful deity you can work with is your personal daemon. You must connect with that first. And you're taking the class and you know that. And the first session we did, that was the groundwork, right? So the work is in, that stuff that you went through in that first session. I know that was several weeks back. But you must first get yourself connected with your personal daemon. That's first, because that's going to open you up to the awareness of all these existing energies, because they actually permeate from your personal daemon. Go back to some older videos I did. Remember, I said in that the most powerful deity you can create is the self-created one, right? Is the one that you create, which is your personal daemon. It's you and you are it, right? That's step one. Then what really links you up and connects all different aspects of that would be Set. Quote unquote, the Prince of Darkness. And then everything after that we're talking about is an extension of that gift of Set. What is the black flame? The black flame is the consciousness that permeates everything that exists in the universe. So you will see when you do ritualistic work with Set, we always light the black flame first. If you look at all the videos of the altars that you see me do, right? When you see that central skull, there's a black candle on it, a black flame. Nothing, we understand all of this that we're talking about has its point or origin in that, and quote unquote, what that black flame is. In the black ship, he refers to it as the black sun or the pandemonium Mandela, right? The abode of the daemon, right? The abode of the daemon is right here, right? He's not talking about a literal black sun, even though he's using adjectives and descriptions to describe a concept that can appear external in nature. And I know the individual that wrote the black ship. He's actually a part of one of my orders that I belong to. Malthus is his pen name. That's not his real name. That's just his pen name he uses to write books. So that's to keep it. He doesn't like his real name. He keeps his identity. He has a pen name, or some authors do that. They have a pen name because they don't want it to cross over into their personal life. You have a lot of authors that do that. Even when you see an author, sometimes it takes a basic mundane name like Bob Smith. That could be his pen name, or Adriana Johnson, whatever. That might seem like a basic name, but sometimes they take a pen name and they just don't want to use their personal. They got reasons for it. But that would be the best direction. But actually, you'll be in Saturday. Saturday is going to tie that all in because you know what the last topic is on Saturday. So hopefully that pushes you in the right direction. Yes, there's 2 books. Actually, I think I got one right here. No, I don't. Do I? Oh. Yeah, I do. No, yeah, I do. All right, I've mentioned in the past Conjure Ali. I've thrown that book up there. Holy Death. To me, this is the best one. It's just my opinion. There's a lot of books out there. You also have, I think it's Thomas Howell. Howell. He's got one called Santa Muerte. I might have that last name wrong. This one by Tracy Rollins. I went over this a few weeks back. All right. You might want to definitely get that. Another book in reference to Set that I think is good, gives you a basic, it goes into some more, and I'm going to do some stuff on this. This is a really good book. And Yvette, I would definitely, not just Yvette, I would recommend a lot of people to get this because it's going to give you the foundation aspects. It's called Seth, the history and legacy of the ancient Egyptian god who killed Osiris to usurp the throne, right? That's the book right there. A really good book. It's not a thick read. It's about 100, what is it? I may not even be 100 pages. Oh, it might be a little bit over 100 pages. You know what? They don't even mark the numbers in this. But anyway, this is another good book to get, right? And remember, that story of Set and Heru represents the conflict that constantly goes on within you. When it says Set usurp the throne, that's likened to the story of the fallen when he was cast out of the heavens, right? Because he usurped the throne, he disrupted it. It's all of these stories represent you coming. You're waking up, you come into the realization, or you had your moment of Kepra, and you realize that you all took on the form of the Prince of Darkness, Satan, or the devil at some time. Because anytime you took on the role of the adversary, you became Lucifer, Satan, or Set. Because you all came to a point and said, man, fuck this shit. I'm not dealing with this bullshit no more. That's what it means. This book will kind of get into some of that stuff. It represents the story of you. That's what the Set Heru story is. That's why you read the Set Heru story. What? That's the Cain and Abel story, right? You go into the Sumerian, that's the Enki and Enlil story. That conflict of 2 warring brothers, 2 DNA personality, you can find that in many different cultures around the world. Not a coincidence. What it really represents is the internal battle that goes on with you. Now, remember, go back to the video I did with the 8-pointed star of chaos. In the triad of light and darkness, right? You have Set in the triad of darkness, right? But who's there with him? Anpu and Sekhmet. And then you have who's in the triad of light. You have the two adversaries that he battled. Usir, who they in the stories and the mythology say he killed him, right? And to usurp the throne. And that gets into that, the body being chopped into X amount of pieces. And then you get the story of Heru was conceived not through sexual intercourse. The story goes that Aset found the phallus of Usir and was able to impregnate herself. There's your immaculate conception in Catholicism. Where do you think they got that shit from? When the Catholic Church teaches about the immaculate conception, that Jesus was born without being conceived through sexual intercourse, they got that from that story. That's where they got it from. Because the story in ancient Egypt goes that Horus was conceived not through sexual intercourse, the phallus. Now, when you look at the phallus, right, look at all your churches, right? Look at your minarets, which are nothing but a woman's titties. Look at all the masjids and look at your steeples, as they call them, right? Their penises. That's all it is. Look at them from the top. You see the round ones that look like breasts, and you see the phallus. All not. There's a lot of modern churches now that I'm talking about the traditional. And look at your Gothic churches. Look at your churches in the Middle East. Look at your masjids. You're seeing that depicted just in the architecture alone when you look at it. Some of y'all probably already know that, but I'm just saying all of this is connected and it's done for a reason. So when you're reading those stories, Set represents you. When you took on the mindset, listen to the word, the mindset. I like to say the mind of Set. Right? We used that word for years and we didn't even know. Say, man, a certain mindset you got to have to do that. Certain mindset you must be to be successful. You must have a certain mindset to be a good athlete. You must have a certain mindset. What are they saying? They're saying in order to have the mind of Set, what is the mind of Set? The isolated consciousness. You must be isolated in your thoughts, isolated from all the bullshit that distracts you, all the religious dogma you've been programmed with, all the shit you've been spoon-fed. You've been told how to act, how to dress, what to eat, what not to eat, what you should and should not do, what you should accept as truth and what you shouldn't, what you should believe. You should accept this fearful concept. If you don't believe and you don't ask for salvation, you're going to this fictitious place and you're going to burn in hell and die eternally, right? That's the shit you got to separate yourself from, right? Set represents that separation, that isolation, right? So that war you read, that story you read about Set beating the shit out of Heru and kicking his ass and plucking his eyes out, that represents you rising up against your lower self. That's all that represents. You've now come into the realization you are not going to conform. All right? I mean, there's so many more layers or levels to it. As you know, as time goes on, I keep going in on this because this is really the concept. Like, I don't know if I have the image in here. Let me see. Matter of fact, it's in this. But hold on. Let me find. I think it's in the Set book. I want to throw this up there so you guys can see something real quick. Maybe it might be in here. No, I think it's in here. Hold on. I think I have it. Yeah, here it is. Bear with me. You guys have probably seen this image before. This is everything I'm talking about is a representation of this. There's someone to pronounce it Herophy, right? Horaphy. He of two faces. You've probably seen this on a lot of imagery, right? I'll try. So it's not a big image, but you guys see that image right there? This one right here. That image there. We actually did a ritual on this several months ago. It's the one body, right? And then you see the face of Set and the face of Heru, right? Everything I'm just talking about is embodied in that concept. You have just as much of Set in you, quote unquote, as you do Heru. The problem is in all these Kemetic systems, everybody wants to be Heru and Usio, Osiris. And I've even heard people refer to Osiris, the Most High. That's all religion. You need what that represents is you need a combination and a harmony of both of those energies to be a black adept. That's what the triad of light and darkness represents. If you didn't see the video I did a few weeks ago on the 8-point star of chaos, all of it is embodied in that primordial chaos. Because when you're casting your hermetic circle, like I said in the video, you're creating you're conjuring up the chaos energy. And the adept and the magician comes to the realization that everything comes from that primordial chaos. That's why I said in the video, I don't do banishing, because you don't want to destroy any of that energy. Everything needs to be pulled from that primordial source. You can't destroy that. Why would you want to banish that? And when in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, I always ask somebody, what is it you're banishing? Well, negative energy. Well, what energy is negative? Which confirms to me subconsciously you have fears. Because in order for you to banish something, it means you're afraid of it. You may say, not on the surface. No, it's not why I'm doing it. Yes, you are. Because subconsciously there's some trauma there deep down inside you haven't addressed, where you think there's some negative energy that can harm or hurt you. Nothing can harm or hurt you unless you allow it. Step one is you must accept that something can harm you. If you understand how voodoo works and root work, the only way root work works is you have to convince the individual that they are a victim to it. I don't like to talk about a lot of that stuff openly because that can get misconstrued, and that is a part of this path. But what I'm saying is it's only effective unless the individual has to accept the reality of it. And that's a whole nother process. But anyway, let me keep going here. I know I stayed on that one for a minute. My bad. Gene, the book. Who's the author of that book? There's a few books titled Santa Muerte. Maybe you can put the title, the author in, so other people can maybe go ahead and look for that. All right. Yukita Garrison, thank you for this video. Now I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Lady Shirley Simmons, change isn't always a comfortable feeling, damn painful at times, though it always tends to bring a higher evolutionary energy and pathways. And that's exactly correct. Because in that pain, when I'm saying pain, we're not just talking physical pain. I want to make that clear. We're not talking about, pain where you were hurt physically. Pain is also emotional. Pain is also spiritual, and pain is also mental. And when we go through changes in life, be it through relationships, career, business, family members, siblings, husbands, wives, a lot of that stuff is painful on those levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, yes, and physically, sometimes. All right. And in all of those things described is tremendous growth. All right. And you'll find out when you face it and deal with it head on, it removes those obstructions and blockages in your path. It's that simple. That's part of the road clearing process. And remember, I said in that video I did on road clearing work a few days back, you shouldn't just be doing road clearing work when there's something wrong. I find that is a big mistake with a lot of people. When they realize they have a blockage, then they say, oh, I got to go work on this. Do maintenance work on it, as I like to call it, just like you would your car. You got to get a tune-up. You got to change the oil, the tires. If you just kept riding the car until the wheels fell off, it's going to break down eventually, right? Apply that same concept to road clearing work. You can do maintenance on it, even when everything is going smooth in your life. Work with some of these archetypes like the Holy Death, like Papa Legba, like Anpu, like Sekhmet, like Set, like Kali. When you want to keep them clear, let's keep them shits clear consistently. Keep putting the energy and the intent out there. I do shit now when shit is going right to say, I'll even put stuff in my invocations like, and if anything is coming over the horizon, make me aware to see it so I can eliminate it. I'll say something like that in my work. Just an example. So don't just do road clearing work. I can't stand the magician that only does magic when there's a problem. You understand what I'm saying? That's the problem in itself. And that's the person that won't get consistent results. Remember, the difference between this type of work and everything else, this is a way of life. This is something you do on a daily basis. This ain't something like, you got people that play conscious, they do their dirt during the week. And then when there's an event or a lecture, they put on their dashiki and all their, little symbols, and they play African for a day. And then they go back to doing the same shit they were doing when they leave there. The difference is on this path, you can't fake the funk like that. You can't do that on this path. You're not able to, because it's going to show. How does it show? In your results. So the first thing I ask somebody, and I get tons of clients that come to me all the time and are struggling with results. And 9 out of 10 times, it's lack of consistency. That's it. It's not even that deep. And then after getting to talking to them and working with them, they're not really doing any work. And then I'm saying to myself, did you ever maybe correlate and stop and think that could be a huge part of your problem? And then we'll work from that point to getting them to do some particular work to getting that stuff clear. That's how I work. That's how I do it. Because with me, if you worked with me, and there's plenty of you in here right now that have worked with me on a personal level through that, and you know I give you work. This ain't I ain't the type of spiritualist you come to and I'm going to tell you how great you are. And you're so special. And you have a spirit of a fluffy butterfly that's so peaceful and love. No. You need to do this. This needs to be done. This is an area of cover. And whatever comes through, as far as blockages are concerned, that's my main concern in working with people, is getting them to deal with their bullshit. It's not that you don't know it's there. It's just you forgot because you're so distracted focusing on other things. My job is just to realign that. And then you figure it out. You've always known it. It's always there. But sometimes we just need a swift kick in the ass. That's all. I need a swift kick in the ass every now and then. And I need somebody to remind me sometimes. It's very easy. And always know, it doesn't matter if you're in this 20, 30 years, 1 year or 2 years, we all have moments where we struggle and we slip. Don't let nobody fool you. Anybody that tells you that they don't have problems or they don't go through struggles, we all do. I don't care if you've been on this path 30 years, 20 years, or 2 years. It's just when you are armed with the artillery and the tools to deal with it, it's much easier. That's the difference. All right. Okay. Undulating darkness. Is it weird that Santa Muerte appeared to me vividly in the past, even though I'm in the UK and I had never seen her imagery or had any knowledge of her, nor have been exposed to any Hispanic culture? No, it's not weird at all. Because remember, I'm not saying you did that. Put the borders there because, and I told people that some people don't practice certain paths because I'm not saying you're doing that, but you struck something in me that because it might be something familiar or popular in a particular culture, they feel like how would it be possible for them to connect to it? Remember the symbol of it itself, the Grim Reaper symbol, because in essence, when you're looking at the image of the Holy Death, it's what one would know as the Grim Reaper. I would look at that experience now, even though you saw it as the image of the Holy Death, Santa Muerte, in some shape, form, or fashion, your subconscious mind was communicating to you that it's time for you to connect, quote unquote, with that abode, or you're having an experience with that abode, or that realm or that type of energy was trying to reach out to you and communicate to you. And I don't know how further you went or what you got out of the experience and how you put it into, how you perceived it. Did you act on it? Did you look more into it? Did you start doing work with it? Maybe I'll scroll down, you put something there, but I'm just saying, I look at that as an aspect of your subconscious mind simply communicating a level of awareness to you. So no, it's definitely not weird. I've known people that have had connections, dreams, visions of stuff in other cultures they just were never ever exposed to at any time. It goes and confirms what I was saying earlier. Remember, when you're seeing the Holy Death in one culture, it's always synchronized in the language and the culture, in this case, in the Mexican culture, right? But you're seeing the same concept in the Egyptian culture as ample. Just a different name, and the name, the title, the language, and the culture gives shape and form to the type of archetype you're dealing with. In essence, what it represents is all the same thing, right? When you're looking at Set, right? Set is correlated to when you go into what they're calling in religion, what? The adversary, or Satan, the devil. Some will say Lucifer because of what it represents. We talked about Oya, right? Oya and Kali, very similar, right? But Oya is because it defines the name, the title, the attributes it was given in the Yoruba culture in West Africa. Then you're looking at Kali from the ancient Dravidian culture, not the modern day Kali shit, because Kali means what? Black mother goddess. Remember, the ancient Dravidians or the ancient Hindus or the ancient Indians were African. They were black. The Hindus are not the ancient Dravidians that are there today. So now even Kali, they've turned her into, from being a pure dark-skinned African woman, she turned into that to some light-skinned pale blue woman now. because all the modern day statues and images you see of Kali are not. If Kali means black, she shouldn't be depicted as any other color, right? That's what I'm just saying. Kali Ma, right? So you do the research. But what I'm trying to say is it's not weird. These things can cross-reference each other because remember, the energy is all the same. It just personifies over the course of many years in different shapes and forms. That's why you'll see some cultures it personifies as a male, some as a female. And you got to understand, when you're dealing with these are energies, right? These are simply, some will say beings of light and energy if you want to get a little fluffy. But these are just energies. And these energies, when they slow down their vibrational frequency, they can take on whatever human form they decide, right? We learn, you hear about shapeshifters, right? I keep telling you, if you sped up your vibration and kept making yourself less dense, your vibration and frequency would speed up so fast, you would go back into energy. It's just that simple. And I always use that analogy of this, right? You see my finger, it's vibrating slow. The faster I do this, right? As I keep going, and if I keep going faster, it creates the illusion that it's not there no more. It's just sped up its vibration and frequency. When that happens, your molecular structure changes, you start to dissipate and go back into energy, right? As the molecules speed up and your vibration and frequency speeds up, you start to evolve back into energy. We had that ability. We just simply lost it. That's what alchemy was trying to teach when it says, go back into the emerald tablets, make yourself less dense so you can understand that. That's part of the science of being able to astral travel, disciplining yourself to speed up your vibration and frequency. You can actually do that when you concentrate and focus. I know that some people think it's bizarre and crazy, but you can do it. When you start to tap in and you're able to discipline yourself to do that, then you feel the body start to separate. You start to feel you being pulled from your body. We all have glimpses and experiences of this over the course of our life. Everybody experiences sleep paralysis. I'm sure most people have. You've had moments in your life where you were laying on the bed and you felt like you were getting sucked out of your body. You tried to wake up and you were pinned down to the bed. That's because you were getting ready to go. Your fear is what stopped you from going because the sensation that kicked in, you didn't know how to perceive it. It felt weird. It felt strange. You knew you were getting ready to lift off and go somewhere, but your fear stopped it from happening, right? So you didn't know how to react, and you didn't know how to discipline it, right? That's the thing that I'm talking about. Making your fear and your emotions can trap you in what we call this three-dimensional realm: person, place, or thing. To really understand the hidden science of this, one has to get themselves to a point where they can vibrate at being outside of person, place, thing. When you're trapped in person, place, and thing, ask somebody. This is why this constant debate and fuckery over this whole God and religious concept. Because you got human mortals trying to give a definition of what the creator and God is confounded to three-dimensional things: person, place, or thing. So that's why it's all fuckery back and forth. But I guarantee you, when you start to have your own experiences and start to travel that astral or spiritual plane, you're not seeing it through the eyes of somebody that's confounded by person, place, or thing. The body and when the body leaves the soul, or your soul leaves your body, I should say, and you start to meet on that plane and you connect with all of those spiritual forces, and you understand that there is really no such thing as good or bad. That's an illusion. You start to understand what these energies represent. This is what we call the deific mask on this path. So instead of looking at God from an external perspective, you put on the deific mask, right? You're looking now through the eyes of God. You become God. Instead of asking the question, you have become the answer to the question, right? You don't ask questions that we ask on a surface level. Trust me when I tell you. Now, I'm not telling you to accept any of what I just said. What I am telling you is try to motivate you to have your own experience, to raise yourself up to the realization of that. That's when it becomes truth. That's why I said last night, is truth absolute? The average person would say, yes, truth is truth. It's not true. Truth is only truth or absolute when the individual can confirm it for themselves. Because I can make a statement that's an absolute truth to me tonight, but it may not be a truth to another person based on how they perceive me, because they may not have the experience on that, or vice versa. Somebody might say something that could apply to me. So we got to be careful when we throw these terms around. You become the absolute truth when you raise yourself up to a level like that. That's what I'm trying to get people to see. So you don't ask, is there a God? You know what it is to become a God or a goddess. When you tap in on that realm, because you're not looking at it. When we're asking mortal shit like that, we're asking it from a three-dimensional mindset. What is that? We're confounded, because everything the average human says, even in spirituality and religion, it's all confounded to a person, place, or a thing. That's what the quantum physics was trying to get people to break out of, right? Quantum deals with the four, right? Quantum deals with quasi, quantum, right? Standing on your square, right? They say to a Mason is on his square. He's on his quantum physics, right? Are you standing firm on your square, right? When you're standing firm on your square, what you're saying is, I mean, they don't know that, but when you look back on it now, not all of them, when you're standing firm on your square, you are basically saying, I've now taken that step, or I'm at that stage of taking on that godship type of mentality. You're firm on the square, right? Then there's the circle inside the square. That deals with a whole nother science, right? They say when an individual casts a circle, the only one that knows the beginning or ending of that circle is the person that created that circle. That's you creating your universe, right? You'll see many symbols in it. You'll see the square. Sometimes you'll see the circle and then the dot, the nukta, as they say in Eastern mysticism, the dot, right? And that would be a representation of the primordial chaos, right? All this is symbolism. So you could take that and put that on your altar, and that'll take you to a whole nother. Take a square, put a circle inside the square and a black dot in the center. That represents the nukta, or the primordial chaos, where everything emerged, right? And it's a universe within the universe, right? It's a never ending. It's a never ending. There's no such that. All that shit is an illusion. When you start thinking there's a beginning and an ending to something, you're trapped. You're stuck. You're stuck like Chuck with nowhere to go. There's no such thing as a beginning or an end. That's why when we were talking about the grand architect earlier and the concept of supreme being, you're saying supreme existence. Being or to be means to exist. Go look up the definition. There's a play on words there. But the play on the words is how you absorb it in the subconscious. Now go back and look at a lot of the shit you were taught. And you've been hearing me say for years, step one in mastering magic is reprogramming the subconscious mind. When you come on this path, you must reteach yourself everything you thought you knew. You must reevaluate everything you've been told from day one. It's not an option. All the religion you were fed, the dogma, whether it was from your parents, teachers, school, pastors, reverends, even past people in your life that misfed you information in certain spiritual educational systems. All that shit's got to be reevaluated. It's the only way, because that's part of the deconstruction, reconstruction process one has to do on themselves, right? There's a constant that's constantly at play. That symbol of Set Heru, the two faces, right? Heru represents that which must be deconstruction. And Set represents the reconstructor that's going to reconfigure, right? Or we tie into the ancient science in Egypt, Khepera, to remanifest, right? When you look at the Khepera symbol, Kheperi, which represents an aspect of the sun god, one, and then you also see the scarab beetle is a symbol they use for Khepera, right? Why? Because the scarab beetle is one of the few, or the only, I could be mistaken on that, is one of the few unique creatures on the planet that can reproduce without the aid of another scarab beetle. Go look it up. That represents you. That represents the individual has the ability to remanifest. That's taking something, remanifesting it. That's you being your own creator, your own God. That's why you see the scarab beetle in a lot of glyphs and a symbol in a lot of the temples, a symbol that was utilized to convey a lot of messages in some of these, Egyptian teachings or Egyptian mysteries or whatever you want to call it, right? You will see on my altar right at the foot of Set, I keep a scarab beetle, right? And I mentioned this before. I'll have Set in the middle just because it's the ritualistic. You create it, so by you creating it, it's speaking volumes to your mind. So I have Set in the center. scarab beetle right at the base of his image. I have the pentagram laying straight in front of that. I have 2 black serpents on either side. That's the chaos, because I know everything is embedded in chaos. So immediately when I'm at my black magic altar, I look at that. I have primordial chaos. I have the pentagram is set to 5 points and what that represents. I have Set, and I look down right at his staff. When I look where his Pekibet knife is and his staff, I see the scarab beetle. It's a reminder that out of that chaos, I remanifest those things about myself which I need to correct, because the chaos brings it. The chaos brings the God out in you, the goddess out in you. It's not a bad thing. And that's why I referred to, when I was doing the Aquaman video a little while back, I referred to people to go back and watch that King Arthur movie that was out last year. And remember, that monster he fights at the end of the movie. I pointed this out in that video, and I'm pointing it out again. Remember what he says to that monster demon? And throughout the whole course of the movie, that demon haunted him from when he was a child till he was an adult. And then when he realized it was self-created, right, the whole energy changes. He says to the demon, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for everything you've done. He realized at that point what he was running from was himself. He created that demon. He created that fear. That demon was self-created to bring the best out in him. Now, he ran his whole life from it because he thought it was something to fear. It wasn't. It was something that emerged from that primordial chaos. Out of what? Out of his mind. He didn't realize that what he was running from was what he created. You understand? And it's a powerful part of the movie when you sit there and you watch it. Some heavy shit. You know, might look at it as entertainment, but look at that. That's something we all are going through in life on a regular basis. We deal with it because most of the problems we're struggling with are self-created. We just don't realize it. Any monster, I don't care how crazy the image is, you see it in your mind, whatever you created as a kid to the present day, whatever nightmares you had, you created it in the mind. You conjured up this. Now, there could have been many things that influenced you, right? They say when you were a kid, if you watched a horror movie, the images stay in your mind, but you added to that creation of that. And then what that did was manifest your fears. And once you recognize that, then you're starting to become on the path of remanifesting this shit and getting it right. That's the difference. All right. Anyway, let me not stay on that too long. That was all from Shalisa's question and the other question. All right. Ammon Blackstone. The Holy Death is a gatekeeper and can give access to all spirits of the dead. Correct. I found out that linking your zodiac with her, be it water, fire, earth, you can get strong results. Peace. And there's a ritual in this book to do exactly what you just said. I mean, you can obviously adjust it and create your own out of it, but there's a specific ritual in there to use the Holy Death to call upon any spirit. So that's a good point. And that is very true. What else we got? Hold on one second. Bear with me, people. Damn, you guys typed a lot of shit in there. Just give me 1 second, people. Did a little skipping thing. I'm trying to scroll back up and find my spot. Damn, I really lost one. Okay, here we go. Let me turn on this fan here. Feel the fire spirits coming through this stuff. Turn this on real quick. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, Kevin Windley. When someone performs magic to harm others, I was told it comes back to them when it's not justified. So does that mean also for the so-called elite when they do magic to the masses? Now, it depends on your personal perception of that. When, see, again, we gotta always go in essence to statement. Okay, so you said when someone performs magic to harm others, I was told. Now, the first thing I would ask you, if we were talking personally, who was it that told you that? Okay, that's step one, because then I would have to ask them what's their background, what did they study, and where are they getting it from. This is important because when we just, and again, it's not to get picky with you, but we have to be clear when we're asking questions like this. That is a very general statement. So I would have to ask, who was it that told you, and what they told you, where are they getting that from? Because that could be a telltale all of this concept. All right. But I'm going to get into what you're trying to describe. But I'm saying that to you and to everybody listening. When somebody comes to us and says something, we have to find out, like if I'm making a statement and I'm saying something, I'm also following up, and I'm not telling you to accept it. I'm telling you, I'm pointing you in directions where you can go find out, research for yourself, and then you come to the conclusion. That's the difference of what I do. If anybody comes to me and says, hey, this and that, I got to find out, where are you getting this from? Because usually that's a telltale. But let me continue. So then you follow it up and say, does that mean also for the so-called elite when they do magic to the masses? Look, you got to understand, it depends on what you're working with. All right. As far as being justified, if you're looking at it from a karma perspective, I went over that yesterday with cause and effect. So if you're looking at it from a karma perspective, yeah, if you do something you know has got repercussions, you can call it karma. Of course, some shit's going to come back that's going to backfire on you. I wouldn't attribute it in let's per se into some mystical, spooky force. And I'm not saying you are. Yes, there's always consequences, cause and effect to all actions and decisions. Every decision you make has a reaction to it, right? Or an effect. The cause would be the decision you made. The effect would be the results that come from it. So that applies pretty much to, a bunch of different things. But if you're working magic to harm somebody, so let's get a little more specific. So let's say you're doing a ritual that you want to do harm to somebody. Now, if you understand how magic works and you're really into the science, there are rules, universal laws that govern it. Yes. You have to be justified in doing certain things like that. What do I mean by justified? Meaning, if you set out to do somebody harm, the only way, if you're not in right, and say it's out of just pure, animosity and hate and just straight whatever, just your motivation or your motivating factors is not productive, you're usually going to have to give something to get it. And sometimes that could be something very treacherous. Yes, especially if you're working with the spirits of the dead. Especially if you're working certain levels of, let's say, Palo, that deals with a lot of working with the spirits of the dead. They will require something of you. So even if it's done on a wide scale, now, if we're talking, when you say the masses, if we're talking like the power structure in the world, I wouldn't really consider that magic. I would just consider that certain individual. We allowed, when I say we, I'm just speaking in general. A lot of the things that are happening, it's not that it was anything heavy and deep. It was just a lot of fucking deception, right? It was a lot of fuckery and trickery. And how did it start? Simple indoctrination. All right. Now, if we're getting into physical acts, right, we can get into history, we can get into wars, enslavements. That's a whole different story. But if we're talking spiritual magic, of course, there's powers that work and conjure up certain energy so they can stay in control, of course. Now, as far as coming back to them, it depends on your perception of what exactly that means. Because let's look at two things now. Because let's use the Jay-Z analogy real quick. All right. People make all these statements about Jay-Z being in the occult and doing all this. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But if we eliminate this fictitious karma thing, those that know Jay-Z's life and his history, if there is really such a thing of this coming back and being punished for doing certain things, well, Jay-Z basically got to where he got to by basically selling dope and killing people, right? It's not a secret. So look where he's at now. And if you're going to get religious, and I'm just speaking in general, if anybody's going to get religious in spirit, well, he made a pact with the devil. Now I got to question you, well, what are we talking about? The religious concept you have in your mind of the devil? So we got to make sure we're putting it in the right context, because if there is this justified thing and something coming back on somebody for doing something, it always poses a question. Why do all the people that seem, quote unquote, to be not good people seem to always get ahead? And if your only answer to that is, if people only answer to that is, well, they made a pact with the devil, I can't come at you on that religious level, then that answer alone would just tell me everything I need to know, because you're stuck in faith and belief and fiction, and you're stuck in this false religious concept of what this is all about. Now I'm expounding more on your question, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but justified, you always need to, when you're doing certain, if you're working magic on a person or individuals, you really need to think that out. So to answer your question in simplistic terms, if you go back into a lot of the videos I've done over the years, I've always said you must be justified to do magic, especially if it's magic to protect yourself to harm another, most definitely. So there are universal laws that govern that, not man-made mortal laws. It's a whole different level, especially in Palo. It's a whole different level, and it's real. People don't have to accept it's real or not, but that energy is real. Trust me when I tell you, it's as real as it gets. So I hope I answered it in the context you were looking for. If I didn't, maybe you type something later down and I'll try to follow up on it. All right. Aniel Padella, Angel Padella. She cracked all the other candlelights. She basically, I guess you're talking about the Holy Death. She told me she just needed me and only me. After that, I was no longer atheist. Yeah, I mean, whatever. That's your revelation. That's your revelation. But again, there's a play on that word itself, because remember, atheist comes from the word theos. Atheist and theo have root in the English word we use every day called theology, right? And I mentioned in the Bible, anywhere in the New Testament where you see the word God, you see the word theos is the word they use for God. When you're saying atheist, you're saying a person that still has a theory. I think it's not, most atheists understand existence, creation, but I think where they struggle with, and this is my opinion, I'm not saying that was your case, where they struggle with is they don't know how to put it into context. So it's just easier to believe in Darwin's theory of evolution and things just fucking happen. Now, if that's what certain people believe, if it works for you, it works for you. I made that clear. So, but the question I would ask you, the question that I would ask when you say no longer, atheist, did that experience, are you saying you believe in like a religious God, or just so we're clear on it, or are you saying that you now confirm the existence of other spiritual forces? Because that can mean a multitude of things, but I'll scroll down to see if you expounded more on it. Maeve made a comment earlier when I was talking about technology. Yeah, we didn't grow up in this technology. That's true. All right. Yeah, and Todd, the podcast, if you came on late, yeah, I'm going to be connecting the Talk Show radio show to the channel. I've changed the name. It's not Awakening Universal Minds. It's going to be called Primordial Chaos Radio. You'll see it's going to be a different format. Going to be some similarities, but it's going to be a little bit of a different format than what we did. But all the old shows will still be archived on there. They'll stay on there. You can still access all the older shows. But we've just given it a makeover. We're going to do something a little bit different and kind of link it to what I do here on the YouTube channel. Because with the new software on the Talk Show, you have that ability. So that's going to be coming. I believe we're going to start that next week. But anyway, there'll be more coming on that. All right. Am I saying this right? Undulating darkness. Could you share some insight into energy cleansing? Excellent question. You should always, for an example, when you study certain systems that deal with high levels and exchange of energies, let's say vampirism, for an example, we're always in contact with all types of energy. As we're sitting here right now doing this YouTube, There's energies being exchanged. Remember, anytime there's interaction between people, one is giving and one is taking. So right now, there's a constant exchange, giving and taking of energies. When you are out on your daily grind, be that your own business, be that work, whatever it is you do, anytime you're out interacting with people, brushing up against people, shaking hands, there's a constant exchange of energy. Even when, if you're sexual acts with your significant other, be it spouse, husband, wife, whatever, there's a constant exchange of energies. What you also must understand in the exchange of sexual energies, there's always one more dominating person. There's one person whose DNA is spiritually stronger and able to absorb and suck more energy from the other individual. This is why you will also see why usually the male, right? You always see depicted in movies, and the male, after getting a good piece of ass, always knocks out and falls asleep, because that divine feminine is a little bit more powerful. I'm not saying all, but most. So we used to have this joke when we were younger: don't let them know that they knocked you out. Let them fall asleep. You probably all heard of this. It's shit we used to. But anyway, so whether it's that on a daily level, or especially when you're doing ritualistic work, you can get drained. So there's very simple ways to cleanse yourself, and I'm glad that this is an excellent question. One thing I like to do is a very simple visualization. What's up? I like to, for an example, green represents healing energy to me. So what I like to do is I'll sit in a chair. I don't like to sit on the floor when I meditate. Sit in a position you like when you meditate. Could be lotus position, Indian style. I like to sit in a straight back chair. I like my chakras just comfortable, straight in a line. And what I'll do is I'll visualize like a vortex and a green energy coming from the vortex, and I'll visualize it going down. You can visualize it going through the chakras. I can visualize it either way, starting from the root, working its way up, and filtering out through the crown. And what I do as I'm doing that, I visualize all that negative energy being removed. And it's like a revitalization, recharge yourself. Here's another thing you can do. I think I showed this in one video. It's very effective. You can do this sitting up. I like to do this. I do this every night, flat laying on my bed before I go to sleep. Take your hands and interlock them just like this. Right. The noise, buddy. I know this is the noise. Take your hands and put them just like this and put them on your solar plexus. And lay down and breathe. Take a couple of deep breaths in through the nose, exhale through the nose, and then just develop a couple of minutes pattern of rhythmic breathing. And same thing, you can visualize you can use whatever concept, but just the rhythmic breathing is also a form of cleansing, okay? So there's many visualizations. Now there's physical elements you can also do to assist that. You can create your own little, what I like to say, you can take obviously a spiritual bath. You could create your own complete spiritual bath where you can clean yourself and recharge yourself. You could add the physical element as well as the spiritual, or sometimes it's as simple as just taking a mixture of like Florida water. I might take that with a little, I'll get this little thing. It's like a myrrh. They sell it in the occult stores. It's like a base. I'll mix that. And I like to take rue. There's a base of rue. It's called a mixture of 21 herbs. And you can put that in a little bowl in front of your altar, take it in your hands, pass it over your head, take a little bit in your hand, and completely wipe yourself down. You could do that prior into going into a cleansing ritual. So yes, there's many things you can do mentally and spiritually, and there's also a physical element. You should always clean and recharge yourself, especially after doing any work where you feel like you are drained or you need to be cleansed. Usually as you start doing work on this path consistently, it's clear when you need to do that. I personally, and I've talked about this before, when I set my days aside to do ritualistic work, like for an example, the Holy Death about a week and a half ago, I always like to take a cleansing bath before I do the work, right? And then afterwards, I like to do a little something spiritually to recharge myself. That's my method. I like to do the physical cleansing prior to the work and then a spiritual thing after the work. Now, I also want to take this in mind. Don't look at the cleansing as opposed to like you're removing some negative evil energy. And I'm not saying that's why you asked the question. Look at it as what you're doing is the energy that needs to be recharged. You're just recharging it up. That's usually why you feel like you need to, quote unquote, be clean or cleansed. But that's my method. That's what I would do. That would be my suggestion, kind of that area. The Rogue Titan, love that new title. I think you were referring to the radio show. Yeah, that's the title we came up with, Primordial Chaos Radio, and the symbol is really cool that we found. Because look, it all comes from that, right? So let's call it for what it is. And what we're going to be dealing with. We were dealing with that first time around, but we're going to, we're dealing with the prime essence of things. That's what we think. All right, Rogue Titan. Okay, Yukita Garrison, Santa Muerte guided me to you tonight. Thanks for the confirmation. Cool. Now, maybe you're saying that because I randomly just came on and I didn't have a plan. Maybe, I don't know if you just turned on YouTube and you were just surfing. That's a cool thing. If that was the case, not saying it was, but if that was the case and you were just surfing, because this particular video tonight, usually I put a notice out there in advance. This was just a spur of the moment thing. So everything happens for a reason. Cool. The Rogue Titan, quick question. You mentioned a while back about creating a sigil with your imagination, visualization, and use your focus intent and maintaining its existence externally from you, so to speak. Yes. Now, I don't know if there's more down to your question, but yes. Especially, you're going to also notice, and also like the demonic integration ritual, when you work with your personal daemon, you will find out when you start doing your work, you will start seeing images, symbols, and weird designs. Those are personal messages for your subconscious mind. You should record them and write them down. But yes, in reference to your question here, right, usually you can use that to spark that imagination. It's very easy to do that if you're working a particular ritual for a particular situation. The mind is able to focus on what the intent of the ritual is and the concepts that are connected to it. And that usually manifests or creates the sigil, how you can create it with your imagination. There's many ways to do it, right? As far as maintaining its existence, if I'm understanding, I know I've talked about in the past, I've mentioned that in the sense because once you've created it, and I do recommend people you should write it down, but then it becomes second nature. You can just see it all the time. You're able, like say I've created a sigil that will open me up to that Pandemonium Mandela, the abode of the demons. All I got to do is just put it on my altar and focus on it, or all I got to do is see it in my mind's eye. And now I can just go into that abode where I don't need the mirror all the time, right? At first, when I did it, I need the mirror, but through that ritual, when I was in there, that's when it was actually created. I'm just using an example. But it can unlock portholes or doorways or gateways. It can be used in addition to communicating messages to the mind. It could be used for a whole bunch of different things. All right. So yes. Ruth Ellen, black mirrors are intense. Yes, they are. I love mirror magic. Here's a quick one for that. All right. Outside of the one I've used it for the personal demonic, you want to really experience. Some of you might have done this. Put the black mirror on your altar. Get as limit. I like to just do it with one black candle. Have as limited light in that room you can. If you can do it just with the candle, I'd recommend that. The candle is just there side by the mirror just to give some sight to the mirror so you can see the mirror. Because if not, I've done this in the complete darkness too, but I would recommend you do this first with the black candle so you get the concentration aspect of the ritual down. Place the mirror on your altar. Now, if you want to have any imagery on there, like a skull or to enhance it, that's fine. Obviously, I like to burn some incense for this type of ritual. I've done this in full black attire with the hood on, and I've done it without. It was very interesting what I saw in the mirror with the hood on, and it was a little different without. But I'll tell you what I'm getting at. So, set the mood, incense. I don't recommend you do this with any type of music or nothing. Just enhance your senses. The incense, get an incense because remember, the smell factor, and it can also transition you into higher states of consciousness. Incense can do that. The right incense. We all have certain incense we burn regularly or we use for rituals that puts us in a certain mind state. Well, use a good one that you like. One black candle, a black mirror, right? There's two ways with the obsidian mirror. Yeah, you can order them, buy them online. They have a lot of different nice ones. You could even make one yourself. You can just go to like Walmart, buy one of them regular mirrors and take regular acrylic paint and just paint it, flat paint, and just paint it. You can use a little glossier sheen if you want a high resolution. I don't recommend you use something that has a high glossy shine because it becomes distracting. Well, long story short, have this at your altar. Sit where the mirror is face level, where you can place your face directly lined up with it. You know, do you what I like to call your cleansing breaths. Take your 3 deep breaths, cleanse all the negative energy out of yourself, relax for a little bit, clear your mind, right? Get into arithmetic breathing. What I like to do at first, I look at the candle, trap the image of the candle in your mind. That'll get you concentration. Close your eyes and still see the candle burning. Keep focusing on the candle burning, even though your eyes are closed. Once you feel relaxed, then open your eyes and start to focus on the mirror. And all I'm going to tell you is just pay attention to what's going on in the mirror. But I say clear the mind, don't try to dictate what you want to see, because then you can kind of create illusions, start seeing what you want to see. That's why I said do the breathing, get your mind clear, and get yourself in a state of concentration, and do a little brief meditation if you have to. That's so you don't try to influence what you want to see in the mirror. Now, we did a ritual like this here. That was, man, I know you're in here, so you refresh me. Which one was that? Where they went into the chamber and looked into the black mirror. Man, drawing a fucking brain blank. It was like two rituals. Oh, it was the Luciferian ritual, matter of fact. Okay, that was the one we did, aligning the chakras. And then each individual, we had a separate little chamber room set up where each individual went in there by themselves and looked into the black mirror, which that's a whole nother story. And the same thing, we went through a preparation where you want to get yourself where your mind is clear, not open, clear. You don't want any thoughts to influence, because then you could start seeing what you want to see, if you understand. When you get to that state, just pay attention to what takes place in that mirror. You will see many aspects. People always bring up reincarnation, past lives. Well, if you want to see who you were in past existences, that will come through sometimes. Remember, the black mirror is a porthole and an opening to another dimension, a whole nother level of time and existence when you know how to work with it, right? So pay attention to the messages and the communications. You will see many different manifestations. You will see many different appearances. But the difference is the mind, it'll be communicated to the mind what you're seeing. If you see a older type of being, you might morph into an elder looking figure, and you might be a male and see a female. You might be a female and see a male. But once you open that porthole and you're communicating with that personal daemon, the higher self, the messages become crystal clear. You know what you're looking at. And the thing is, you don't need to convince other people, because you can't. It's personal. It's subjective. So don't, after you do something like that, go calling everybody, hey, I did this ritual, and guess what? I saw myself as this, and I lived during this. You're wasting your time and energy. That's personal. Keep it there. There's a saying we have in ritualistic work. You know how they say what stays in Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, what happens in the chamber room stays in the chamber room. We sometimes, as adepts, have to leave it there. That's not something you just go running around and popping off at the mouth about. You understand that, but yeah. Black mirrors are definitely intense. All right, what else you got? Okay. Rogue Titan. That might have been from I would like to hear your methodology on applying this. I hope I answered that. Maybe that was a continuation or something. All right, not sure. Undulating Darks. Yo, I've seen the same imagery. I saw a skeletal goddess in all black wearing a really beautiful crown walking through a royal procession. Yeah, that's definitely an aspect of the Holy Death. Now, remember the aspect. What does the word aspect mean? It means variations of the same thing. Let's understand. Again, one thing, if you know with me, even in the English language or any language, I like to understand the etymologies of words. We got to really focus. So there's many aspects of the Holy Death, and that, to me, what you're describing is one of her many aspects, right? Kevin Winley, I guess that was your earlier question. I hope I answered it right. If there's anything I maybe was unclear on or you didn't understand, as I scroll down, maybe you addressed it. I think I understood your question. I hope I answered it in the context. Hopefully, if not, maybe there's something you type further down. Cool. I was doing some running around while at work, so I wasn't sure if I missed anything you already talked about. I don't think so. I know you were here in the beginning and you might have stepped out, so I'm not sure what you missed. But remember, as soon as this is done loading, as you know, anybody that watches the channel, it'll be uploaded, so you can always go back and found. T.O. Just found your channel, brother. Solid info. I appreciate it. Mumso, I work with Beelzebub regularly, not as a creepy demonic fiend outside him, but as an aspect of my damn. Yeah. Now remember, that's different aspects of the Prince of Darkness. You have Beelzebub, Samael, Azazel, Azazel, Lucifer, Satan, the devil, Set. These are all different aspects of the same thing. They represent different character types, attributes, right? Liken it to this. We all know in Islam, right, that there's 99 plus 1 names of Allah, right? They have Al-Hamidu, the praiseworthy, right? Al-Mukaru, the destroyer, Al-Hakimu, the wise. They're the 90. It's a saying in Islam and Sufism, when you thicker and you chant, you're chanting the 99 names of Allah. Right? I don't know why. I mean, 99 is all another science behind that. But it's all the same thing. Liken it to the same thing. We got to understand that when we're working with archetype. So in Islam, they claim they're dealing with monotheism, but then they're telling you there's 99 names of Allah. But it's all the same thing. You go figure. You tell me. So it's the same thing. When you're saying Beelzebub, Azazel, Lucifer, Samael, you're talking about different aspects, attributes, and representations of the same damn thing. That's why I said go back and read the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti, the one thing. What is the one thing? I'll leave you guys to go research that if you haven't. Maybe some of you haven't. You already know what I'm talking about. What is the one thing? Somebody come back in the next video and tell me. I want somebody to break down what the one thing is. I don't even want to go over it. I'm going to leave it for you to do your research on it. Okay, what is the one thing? Let's figure it out. All right, Mumso, I work. Okay, we read that one. Sorry. Hosni Hernandez. Hosni. Good pronounce either way. Truth, keep it up, bro. I appreciate it. Straight Panther, what's good? Caught the stream late. I'll be watching and taking notes on the replay. Yeah, again, I know if some of you found out last minute or came in late. Again, this wasn't something I posted and scheduled. So that's probably why some of you might have got caught off guard. It was just a spur of the moment thing. Sometimes I get in the moods. If you guys know me over the years, I might go a week and do a bunch of videos, and then I might go a few days, don't do anything. I might go a week and don't do it. It's just one of them moods. It wasn't really anything planned. It's just something I felt like doing. All right. What else we got? Iku says, I have incorporated my own creativity to some of the rituals I perform now. I find that it allows for much better results. Enough said. You're going to find out all the rituals you add your own creativity and create are going to give you the best results. You're going to find out when you stop trying to follow things word verbatim in a book, it's when you really start to grow. I mean, that's what you wrote kind of speaks for itself. That's a beautiful thing. Sister Yvette, I wake up a lot around 3 a.m., but I do not know what to do. I've gotten up and went into the living room, but nothing happens. What would be a good thing to do when this happens? Well, what you probably want to do is scratch your left booty cheek. No, stop. Well, first I would ask myself, why 3 o'clock all the time? And then I would ask myself, position that mathematically to different points in time in the day. From midnight to 6, you're waking up at 3. 3 a.m. is one of the most highest vampiric hours when you're working black magic. I don't know if you know that. You might. You can find that written in many books. So to me, you have certain spirits calling and trying to raise yourself to awareness. So when you say, what is it I should do? I would go to my altar and get a communication or a message. I would go into a state of meditation and ask those spirits to come forth and be clear on what it is they're trying to communicate. The reason why I'm saying I know it's that, all right, I know we have an upcoming session, so we'll probably elaborate on that more. But the reason why I know it's that is you're waking up at the same time all the time. Now, it'd be different. It could be maybe a medical issue if you were just waking up at all different times. Could be something internal going on. But the very fact that you're waking up at 3 a.m. all the time, you have, those, I like to say, spirits of Aku, the spirits of the dead, trying to get your attention. So I would do something in those areas. I would start with a simple visual meditation and simply ask what it is. Why are you waking me up at this time all the time? What is it you're trying to communicate to me? And then go into silence. I keep saying this. We don't practice this methodology of science enough. What do I mean when I say that? You can't, if the mind is not still and quiet, you can't receive the messages. You must find ways to get your mind to be quiet and silent so you can tap in. Most people struggle because they can never get to that state. Okay? There's got to be periods where the mind is quiet. Doesn't mean it's not functioning and flowing because it's always working, but you got to find ways to get it to be quiet and still so you can listen. And I'm not talking a physical voice. I'm talking listen for that inner guidance, that message. So that would be my suggestion, but we'll talk more about that. I'm sure that'll come up. All right, Iku says, when I first began, I would be more focused on if I was doing the ritual correctly. Good point. This is a lot of people struggle with this. Then the ritual itself, as I expand my knowledge, I'm still learning and still finding what works best for me. Yeah, when you're doing a rehearsed thing that you read and you're trying to do it to the T, that creates that kind of creates a conflicting and a distracting energy. Because what you just said, you're more focused on doing it right, and it's taking the power and your personal power and intent away from working the ritual, because your energy is more focused, like you said, on not making a mistake. And I always tell people this: your intent covers your mistakes. Don't worry about if you slipped up in a ritual and worded something wrong or made a mistake. Your intent corrects that. We're all going to do it, where we pronounce something wrong or we do something wrong, or there's a part of the ritual we didn't just get right. Don't focus on what you did wrong and how you messed up. Keep going, flow with it, because what tends to happen is if the intent is on point, you're still going to get the same result. But if you're more focused on how bad you screwed up, then yes, it creates that distraction. All right. Lady Stlee Simmons, this is good. Yeah. How would you work with the Mother Holy Death without court workings? With court workings? Well, there's a couple of ways. One, obviously as a road opener, road clearer. Two, if somebody came to me with that problem, I would first ask them for judges and lawyers' names. I'm not going to get into depth of what I would do, but I would ask them, if you really want to go into depth, you need judges, lawyers' names. I would get, depending on the type of case it was, I would name names of other individuals. There's a Doomy ritual. I'm not going to get into what that is. We could probably talk a little bit about that in private. There's certain things I won't talk about. But there's destruction rituals, for lack of a better word. And all that's needed when we want to go on a real detailed level, just names of individuals would suffice if I was doing work for a client for that, let's say. And then there's the standard stuff you can do. Like, let me give you a basic one I can throw out there. I wouldn't, this is just me. I don't think I don't talk about destruction rituals over the internet. That's just me. I know there's people that do. I got my reasons for it. It's just me. But what you can do that's real simple, all right? On your own, you can get yourself a piece of parchment paper, a black candle, charge it with the Holy Death oil, charge it up real good. And when you're charging it, remember, let me say this. All right, you've all read basic candle magic books. When you're trying to eliminate something, say this is the candle. It could be a taper, I'll show you two ways with a taper or a glass candle. There's two ways you do this. All right. Let's say this is a taper. If I'm trying to eliminate something, I start in the center. And as I'm focusing my intent and outcome, I start in the center. When I'm eliminating or destroying something, I go clockwise. I start in the center and I go to the top. And then I start at the middle again and I go to the bottom. That's clockwise when I'm trying to destroy something. Clear on that? I hope everybody's clear on that. When I am trying to invoke something or bring something to me, okay, I start reverse, the top, and I go counterclockwise to the middle. Same thing from the bottom, I go counterclockwise to the middle. That's how you charge your candles when you're working rituals, all right? I'd recommend a book, Charmaine Day, The Magic Candle. If you don't have it, get that book. Well, anyway, I would take a black candle. I would charge it with the Holy Death oil. I'd write the names of certain individuals on a piece of parchment paper. I'd also write on a separate piece of parchment paper. All right, I usually don't do this, but I write on a separate piece of parchment paper the exact outcome I want from the court case. I would take the one that I wrote the outcome, I'd fold it small enough where I can put it under her image, and I'd take the other one. Once the candle was done burning, after the candle was done burning, glass candle, then I would take, a lighter or whatever, light the parchment paper, and as it's burning with the names on it, you visualize in your mind those people being eliminated, destroyed, and you can see that however you want to see it in your mind's eyes, right? Make sure all the ashes go inside that glass candle. Then that glass candle goes in a paper bag and you take it to the cemetery. All right. There's many rituals you'll find when doing stuff like that. It always winds up ending at the cemetery. All right. But anyway, there's more. That's something basic you can do. But there's other stuff. So the answer to your question, that's a little ritual you can do that anybody can really do, and it's very effective. When you're trying to remove obstacles. So it doesn't have to just be used for court cases, but I could utilize that for court cases. And why you take it to the cemetery, because remember, that's like the gateway or the connection of the abode to those spirits. And because you're working with the Holy Death, you could do the same thing if it was Papa Legba, Kau-Fu. It just depends on what you're working with. But any of them you'll find work is always finished at the cemetery. All right. There's a lot of work you can do. The Holy Death isn't no joke. Look, I'm going to tell you this. All I'm going to do is throw this out there. What I'm doing now in the last 2-3 years financially was built by the Holy Death. Let me just put it that way. You could work with it for finances like a motherfucker. But the one thing I found, you better maintain it because that's a whole nother story. But yeah, Holy Death's no joke. I don't fuck around with it. I have the utmost respect for it. And like I say, I don't leave the house every morning until I do some personal invocation there, right? In addition to the other stuff I do. You understand? And as I'm talking about it right now, and again, people know me, I'm not spooky. I stay grounded. My whole left side of my head here, massive migraine, just on one side, right here on the left side. By your question and what I'm starting to talk about, and I have one of her small images right here that I was going over earlier, and I get those little things. That's like a little reminder, that's like, yeah. Man. But yes. All right. So what else we got here? Some good questions tonight. And here, look, to show you how chaos is a beautiful thing. This, like I said, I didn't even plan this video, just came on and look, this is probably I'm learning from this video, right? So sometimes, being spontaneous and not planning is good magic, right? All right. All right, what else we got? Yeah, I see down there only Sonia must have the phone in her back pocket again. But I see she realized that a lot of your comments got accidentally deleted. All right. So I see she said down there she's sorry. She does that sometimes, man. Take the damn phone out your back pocket. Drive my ass over there, smack it. Stop. But all right, so I see one here I was able to retrieve. That's when I referred to any angel. I found myself saying, saying my Santa Muerte, my Shango, my ancestors, the way it ties directly. Yeah, it's personal. Everybody's got to understand that. Whatever methodology you create for self and it works, that's what you do. Okay, and undulating darkness, as I do the same thing to owning. Okay, my nature, my spirits, my dark power. You should put that on a T-shirt. I like that. That'd be a cool T-shirt. You should sell that shit. Days Ride. Speaking of sigils, did I skip something? Yeah, I did. Okay, yeah, I did. One of your questions. I skipped. I'm sorry. Undulating darkness. Brother Benny, have you tapped into Obey and Papa Bones, etc.? Obey. A little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't worked with a lot of that aspect. No. So I am. My wife being from Jamaica, I am familiar, with it to a certain extent. Have I done particularly any ritualistic work with it? I'll be honest with you, no. Am familiar, what it is, what it represents. But if you say, have I tapped in on a more intricate level, I'd have to say no, I haven't. But now, by you saying that, that might be something I need to go, take a look into. All right. What else we got? Days Rod. Speaking of sigils or symbols, question: can you tell me about King Solomon's key or any other reference or ritual pertaining to him that might be helpful? Yeah, King Solomon's key. I mean, when you get into, you can find a lot of that in the Goetia, the 72 Companions of Set, also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon. There's a book. That's a book been out for a long time. Can't think of the name of the dude. I'm drawing a blank. Now, it depends on the context of Solomon's key. A lot of that goes back personally to me to Hebrew mysticism. Even when you go into the Masonic Lodge, a lot of the mysteries of the Masonic Lodge is about the building of Solomon's temple. Now, when you talk about Solomon's key or ritual, let me see if I can think of the name of the book. I had it right here. Hold on. Let me go into my scribe. It's a book. It's been out for a minute. It's probably one of the most popular. Hold on. I'll give you the name of the author. There are some rituals in there you can do. Hold on. Key of Solomon. There it is. Hold on. Let me give you the author. Yeah, this book here. There's actually two, and they've been out for a good minute. And they do have particular works you can do here. In the Key of Solomon the King, that's one book. There's particular candle magic rituals you can do with some of the symbols, placing them. There's colors that are attributed to some of the symbols. There's invocations. This is the one here that I'm from. The Key to Solomon's Key, the lost symbol of masonry. That's another good book where it deals with that. These are some of the ones I have saved and scribed. And the Lesser Key of Solomon, that's the one. That one's been around for a minute. And the author's name on that, hold on, let me give you the author's name. The Lesser Key of Solomon, the Goetia, the Book of Evil Spirits. It's actually, you can get it for $7. You can get it for free on Scribe, and I have it on Scribe, but I believe it's like $7 on Amazon. Let me see, I've got to make it big. Let me see, I'll give you the author's name. L.W.D. Lawrence, L.W.D.E. Not the letter D, and then Lawrence, Laurence. That's been a book that's been in the occult for a long period of time. And again, that aspect, you can work a lot of magic with the Lesser Key of Solomon, what they call the Goetia, which I work with that more with the 72 Companions of Set. And the science with that really is when you see who was the first one of the 72 Companions of Set to go into battle, you know who led that battle? That was Sekhmet, by the way. Because remember, it says Sekhmet was the devourer of the gods, right? She devoured the blood of the gods, right? Does it mean literally? No. Sekhmet is one of the vampire goddesses, right? Because she devours energy, she absorbs energy. That's how powerful she was. Remember, when you read in some of the ancient Egyptian texts, remember, before a lot of the Egyptian armies went into battle, they did a ritual and invoked Sekhmet before they went into battle. Go figure, right? Wasn't a male they invoked the lady warrior, right? So those books will give you rituals working with Solomon's Key. With the Goetia, the first book I threw at you, there's a lot of candle magic in there where you have the keys, you draw them. You can actually buy them, they actually sell them, and you can actually buy printouts of them, and there's candle magic that works in conjunction with them. So I would tell you, go check those 2 books out. There's more. You could probably pull up a bunch more. I don't really work too much with Solomon's Key. Now, I did when I was in OTO. They do work with some of that stuff, but I don't really deal with it too much. I do work with, in certain aspects, I don't refer to it as the Goetia. I know it's the same thing, but it's not. Some will say it's the same thing, but to me, it's not. When you work with the 72 companions a set, as opposed to the 72 Goetias, because the 72 Goetias, all the demons have their own personal names, but again, to me, it ties more into that Hebrew Kabbalah mysticism thing, whereas the 72 companions a set are more correlating it to the ancient Egyptian concept. It's a little bit different, in my opinion. Now, some might beg to differ and have a different perspective on it, but that's fine too. All right, peace out to Mumso. We almost there. We're going to get through this. All right. Yeah, I'm rolling tonight. I'm not even time. It doesn't even exist to me right now. All right. What else we got? Peace, brother Phil. Damn. Yeah, again, to see Sonya apologize to Oni. Damn, she even timed her out for 300 seconds. What the hell are you doing? Sitting on the phone? Yeah, what'll happen is that's happened a couple of times. If you accidentally highlight a person's name, I don't know if you see the dots next to people's names, but if you hit that, you delete the person's comment, or you can time them out. It looks like the wrench got distracted. But again, she extends her apologies to Oni. It was an accident. All right, the Rogue Titan, the skit on Black Jesus. The skit on Black Jesus off of the Iron Man album sparked my spiritual conscious. 96 shit. I was 14. Yeah. That was, And we were talking about hip hop earlier. Yeah. That's why I was saying when I was early, I was talking about music and how it sped up our intellect and our creativity. We learned a lot from that. I'll be honest with you. During them times, the early to mid 80s is what my beginning stage is, quote unquote, of waking up. I mean, I go back to my 8th grade year, going into my 9th grade year, going from middle school into high school. That's when I would start to say I was searching and really looking. And a large influence of that was the music and the culture, because there was there was a political, a conscious awareness, there was a street awareness. It felt like finally what was needing to be said was being said via the music, and unfortunately, those that have an agenda put a stop to it. Because look, I mentioned this before in previous videos. Remember, they did this shit with R&B, because when you go back to R&B in the 60s, mid 60s to the early 70s, you had Teddy Pendergrass, who was also with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, the OJs. You had all Marvin Gaye. You had all these groups look at Marvin Gaye's albums in the early 70s, late 60s. He was speaking out on Vietnam, politics, religion. He was speaking out on, Black culture. He was educating the masses when you go listen to his work. But what did they come with and swoop in with? And I'll show you how they did it with rap. Then you get to the early to mid part of the 70s. Then it was all about Superfly and pimping, and the music shifted. It all became about, pimp music and funk. And all right, I mean, some of it's cool, but there was an agenda there. All right. I mean, Parliament and P-Funk, there was an agenda there. Now look at hip hop. When hip hop first came on the scene in the 70s and 80s, and then look how socially and conscious aware it got in the 80s. And then boom, going into the 90s is when it all changed. It's mid 90s. To me, the last great era of hip hop was the boom bap era in the mid 90s. When we started to get into the late 90s, there was signs of it going down before that, but to me, it really, really shit hit the fan in the late 90s, going into the 2000s. Then it just became about gangster music and pimping. And I don't really, the NWA thing was a different type of gangster music, because they were bringing a social street justice on a gangster level. It's not the same gangster bullshit they're talking about today. And half of these dudes ain't gangsters. Let's keep it real. It's all for the cameras and the album covers. Now it's all about pimping hoes, drinking Cristal, riding in cars with big ass rims, grilling for the camera with your gold teeth, holding your chains up to the camera. It's like, who gives a fuck? There's no substance in the music. You understand? Don't get me on that, man. You gotta start talking about that shit. I'll be here all night. All right, Jack, brother Jay, what's going on, brother? Yes, undulate, Neptet and Nephthys, right? And as I said, Nephthys would be also an aspect of Lilith, because when you are working with, for an example, Samael and Lilith can be synchronized with Set and Nephthys, and we know who Nephthys was in her, correlation to Set. That's also represents that Samael, what we know as the Samael Lilith energy. Yes. All right, Lady Shlee Simmons, we are built differently from how this generation is. They seem clueless towards job hunting. Yes, they do. And or real learning through books and our minds drawing natural correlation between the lines came wisdom. Yes, it speaks for itself. I think that question was earlier. I did put some books up on there on Set and Set Magic. Another good book here. Set. Judith Page and Don Webb, Set the Outsider. I threw this book up earlier, Set. The History and Legacy of the Ancient Egyptian God Who Killed Osiris. Other good books, Sekhem of Pep by Michael W. Ford is another good book. You'll find specific rituals in there for Set. All right. Tio is out. Peace. All right, what else we got here? Man, you guys really putting some shit up tonight. It's a good thing, though. I'm going to try to get through all of it if I can. I ain't real. I've been on this shit for 3.5 hours already. All right. Oh, Sonya misses you, Jack. You got to get back here, brother. She misses you, man. Hold on. I got to wipe a tear from my eye. Get myself together. Stop fucking on it. I know she's going to kick my ass when I talk to her. All right, what else? What else we got? Oni says, consistency is key. I've created matches. I say as soon as my feet hit the damn floor when I get up. That's right. This is a daily thing. It's not a convenient thing. All right, Days Rod says, very true about astral traveling. I personally been woken up being sucked, right? Yes, many traveling journeys now, waking up feeling drained. Yes, there's many different experiences with it, but you're going to find out. Those are your key experiences where your growth comes, your awareness is opened up. Once you start tapping into those dimensions, it's the best way I can describe it is you start, I used the term, the symbolicism earlier, of putting on the deific mask and looking and becoming God. That's what it's all about. That's your goal. That's what you want to be on this path. When we say, whether it's vampirism or whatever system, your objective is to obtain that state of immortality, right? That's what the objective is of a vampire. They want to have, and it doesn't mean not just the surface vampirism, I want to live forever physically. That's not what it's talking about. That's that Hollywood vampire shit. That's not what it's talking about. Vampire shit, I should say. That's not what it's talking about, but yes. Okay, yeah. Brother Phil asked my thoughts on the Mandela effect. How I look at it, again, get the book The Black Ship by Malthus. He talks about the pandemonium Mandela, right? I think it's more, I work with the Mandela as the abode, how it ties into that whole concept of pandemonium and the demons of the abode of the black sun. It depends on your concept and how you work with it. About getting all crazy over it, I just think it's one of the many systems we incorporate. Now, when you say the Mandela effect, if we're talking about people using DMT and all that shit to tap into it, I don't fuck with that. I never did. I feel you can obtain that Mandela effect without having to use hallucinogens. Now, having said that, I want to make this clear. I'm not knocking anybody that does. I want to make that clear. I'm not being judgmental. I'm not knocking anybody that does. But I think those stages are only temporary. They don't. When you discipline yourself and raise yourself up to those types of effects and abodes, that's when you know you're really tapped into something. So I can obtain that and those states without having to take any hallucinogen. But again, I'm not knocking anybody if they do. I just want to make that clear. Trident 72 says, so brother, are you saying that you are unable to know the multiple perspectives of truth? Of course, because it's personal. My truth may not be your truth and your truth may not be my truth. And that's based on our perception. And how is that perception put into play? Our perception is influenced by one, what we've been exposed to, how we've been raised, what we were brought up around, our society, our living conditions, our culture, our heritage, tradition, what we studied, our level of education. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. That's what I mean when I say understanding the different perspectives of truths. There's different perspectives, not just mine. Everybody has a different perspective because, let me give you an example. You know, people can say, let's use a sports analogy, right? People can say the Patriots are the greatest football team in the last 18 years. Well, on statistics, they are, right? But then some people will go, well, truth of the matter is this year, the Tuck rule, that first year, the first Super Bowl one, they got lucky. There might be different layers to what we're looking at here. So I'm saying in regards to that, yes, there's many different perspectives of truth, and that's on the individual. Wasn't just talking about myself. Because another thing, we could have 8 people in a room and a statement could be made, just like tonight. Not everybody's going to perceive it the same way. Okay, we're not talking about basic truths. Okay, we got to understand this. When we're dealing with simple math and simple science, right? 1 + 1 is 2, right? I'm just using something basic. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm more or less talking about spiritual science. When we're talking about the occult and the hidden spiritual science, there's many different perspectives on that. Then you get people that get caught up in this whole pseudo thing. Not everything is you can't have a source in a book somewhere for everything to validate it. Okay, especially when you're dealing with occult and spiritual sciences. You're not going to find everything in the book, because even if you do, and you go to the author, there's a play on words, the author, authenticate authority. Now you're putting your trust solely in a particular author's hands, because even when he or she first put it out there into existence, did somebody at that point question them and say, how do you know that this is authentic or the truth? But as it got passed down in time and it starts to become widely accepted, that's what turns it into a truth. And some people go by that alone to justify their truth. That's what I was trying to explain. So yes, there are many different perspectives of truth. And we all have our own perspective on what truth is. I'm not talking about faith and belief. That's not truth. If you believe in the Bible, the key word is believe. If you believe in a God, that's a faith. It's not something that you can prove wholeheartedly. If you believe in the concept of, I'm saying theology, monotheism, monotheistic theology, just listen to the phonetics of the word. The answer isn't just in that statement alone. So I was more or less talking about spiritual concepts and the occult and the things that we're talking about here tonight. Okay, there's duality to everything in the universe. There's not one perspective on anything. So when somebody says that and they present something spiritually as the absolute truth, you got to be careful of that. That's how cults are started. That's how all these organizations with followers are started, because there's usually one cult leader over the whole organization, and they're in contact with some divine spiritual presence. They communicate, but the members don't. And they take everything that the leader says as the telltale all as the truth. There's a lot of organizations out there like that today. Let's look at the Nuwapians and Dr. York, right? They believe that what he is saying on everything in spirituality is the ultimate truth, and it's not. There's a lot of flaws in the shit that he's saying. There's a lot of inconsistencies in the shit that he's saying. But there are a group of individuals that believe in their mind that what he is saying is the absolute truth. That's perception. That's my whole point. So they have their perception or perspective of the truth, but then there's somebody that can come right behind it and read that doctrine and see a lot of the inconsistencies. Because then what we're doing is we're accepting another person's personal or subjective experiences, and people will validate it as truth. So that's kind of where I was going with it. So hopefully that's clear. But I understand why it's an excellent question. Damn. Bear with me. All right, where else are we at? Yeah, caution, yes. On a Prince Hall degree, on the recreation aspect, going back to my EA degree and FC and Prince Hall, your name is caution. Yeah, because you're still on that probation period. When you're EA, it's kind of like how you would refer to them. You're a neophyte. You still kind of got to prove yourself. And like I say, the Prince Hall, like the caution and all that stuff, the Prince Hall will use a lot of stuff out of the catechism. Like when you go into AF and AM, F and AM, they don't really use the catechism. Now, the catechism is a good tool, especially for younger Masons, because it keeps them sharp. I was mentioning last night, I don't know if you were on last night, I was mentioning last night in the video, a lot of Prince Halls, for an example, if you're wearing light, any type of Masonic symbols, I'm talking about the real hardcore ones that, they have that raw passion for it. It used to happen to me all the time as a youngin'. They would come up, if you were wearing a Masonic baseball cap, or if you were wearing, they would cover it. And they'd have to say, what do you got to say? You have to say, let there be light. That's the only way they remove it. I've watched, sometimes I've seen some young brothers get their hats snatched when they didn't know what to say. But yes, your name is caution on that EA degree because, and again, in the term caution, it's self-explanatory. Yeah, it's like being on probation. You still got to prove your worth. And you got to be careful of what you say, because some look at it in the aspect you don't really have enough knowledge to talk about certain things. So yes. And I remember, we also in certain lodges, they have degree teams, right? Usually in a good lodge, when you go through a lodge, you're assigned to a degree team. Like a good lodge will raise you up. If most of the brothers stay through all the degrees, you have a class. You usually get raised up with the class you came in with, if everybody hangs on. Now, I know in my class that I got raised up. We all stayed. I think maybe 2 people dropped out in the process. But a good lodge will do that, and then we're able to draw. You're able to draw upon each other and study and get familiar. But usually you have 2 mentors assigned to you. And I know in my lodge we had degree classes. You came on a certain night, and you had to show proficiency, right? And then before you can be even recommended to go the next degree, what they usually do, again, a good lodge, that you don't buy your way through the degrees, you have to show proficiency. That was the point of going to your degree classes and studying. We had to memorize it, word for word. You had to know it word for word. And then how we went and proved our proficiency in our class, right? During one of the regular meetings that they would have at the lodge on a Tuesday or a Thursday, we would come in before all the brothers. They'd bring everybody in from the class. We'd stand in a line, and one of the mentors would just point, and they'd say, start the degree. And they wouldn't go in any particular order. They would point at you. They could jump all over the place. And you would have to recite word verbatim the whole entire degree. And then we would leave the lodge, and the brothers would vote on it. And then you'd come back in and they tell you if they felt you were proficient, and then you'd move on. You had to be proficient. You're on caution, all that. Being prepared, that EA degree. I know some people sometimes, because it's the first degree, it's really the foundation. If you really understand what it represents. But anyway, I can go on and on about that. But yeah. All right, what else we got? Peace, Sister Beth and Margaret. You're way late. All right, people, we almost there. Yeah, and that's a good point, Phil, from what I was talking about earlier. And that's what I mean when I say to be justified. Now, for an example, all right, let me throw this out there. Like with the Holy Death, she's not really concerned with morals. So it's personal. When you're saying things like justification, being in the right or wrong, when I was saying earlier, there's universal laws that govern that and principles, right? That also deals with the individual and their place in the scheme of things. So like you say, when you're approaching it with the aspect, it's all in the mind. That's why I removed the karma thing. And I said, it's really just about cause and effect. So it becomes justified when you understand the full extent of what you're doing. That's why I was saying, understand what you're doing and be justified. And as far as being in the right or the wrong, that doesn't necessarily just mean from a moral standpoint. It means as long as you understand what you're doing fully on all levels, that would kind of confirm what you're saying. So yes, in essence, of course, it's all always there. All right. Oh yeah, happy birthday. Back from August birthday soon. Excuse me. All right, what else we got? All right, I might skip some of these comments. Rogue Titan, brother, you laced me with a bunch of new creative ways to apply these sigils. Good. No, good. And I definitely would like to hear your experiences with them. That's the beauty of it. Get creative. Yes, the Black Mirror is a powerful tool. There's so many ways to use it. I can't. And we incorporate it with rituals we do down here. We use it. We've used it in about 3 rituals, I think now. 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. I know at least 2. It might have been 3. It's powerful, man. It opens you up on so many levels. I've watched people come out of that chamber room. I know Mama Muerte ain't here. I watched people come out of there in tears, literally, after spending just a few minutes in there by themselves, coming out of there in tears, because it opens you up. You know where I got inspired with a lot of mirror magic, believe it or not? I might have mentioned this in past videos. You know who used to practice that a lot? He didn't really talk about it too much in videos. He did periodically here and there. Dr. Delbert Blair. He's the one that hit me to the whole concept of, opening up portholes and dimensions and different abodes. He practiced it frequently. He didn't really talk about it a lot openly, but I got a lot of inspiration. That was back in 2013, 14, somewhere in that area. About 5-6 years. Yeah, he pushed me in a whole nother level with that. So rest in power to the elder, man. Kevin Winley, I probably need to have a consultation so I can express my thoughts better because whenever you're ready, just hit me up. Send me an email. We can definitely set that up. All right. Water and black food coloring works great too yes, that's a good point. I forgot. I do know a person that did that. I've never done that. I was talking about earlier, you could create your own black mirror either with acrylic paint. You can go buy one of those inexpensive, round, a nice size one on a stand at Walmart. That's another I've heard. I know a person that did that, and they said it came out good. So yeah, there's different ways. Smooth to God. That's Hectate saying, "Wake up." Yeah, in reference to earlier to Yvette. Yeah, that's them spirits. That's a good. I like that. David Hall 313. This is a good thing. I don't know if you guys seen this, and that's a creative way. That's what I'm saying, man. He came up with a concept and a ritual by just taking a shower. This is pretty fucking cool. Let me read this if you guys haven't seen it. He says, one ritual I use is take a shower in pitch black dark. I'm going to try this shit. And now you just I'm going to add some personal invocation and shit to it. But listen to this. This is real fucking creative. One ritual I use is to take a shower in pitch black to represent the primordial waters and visualize me creating my reality. I find myself at times seeing color changes even in the dark, usually darker red. I'm going to fuck with that shit. I like that. That's a good, there's a classic example of, and then it's Luciferian in nature because you're completely naked, right? And that's really, and then you got the elements of nature. Yeah, you got the water element, but then you're tying it into the primordial chaos. That's pretty fucking cool. I'm going to fuck with that. You just gave me a couple ideas. If you guys didn't see that, you probably haven't because I'm just getting to it now. But you guys should, I suggest everybody try to fuck with something like that. That's pretty fucking creative. Simple. And everybody knows me, less is more. It's simple. It's not complicated. And there's so many things on a mental level you can utilize that with. That's good. I'll let you guys know how that shit goes. Yes, I guess undulating darkness confirmed that after he typed it in. I would assume, I would assume it's a brother. Hopefully, I didn't mess that up. Good. Here's another good comment by Brother Phil. I've done some magic while doing yard work. Surprisingly, got my results later. Yeah, look. I do literally magic driving to sometimes and from work. Now, again, I want to make this clear. Be conscious. Don't daydream too much because you're driving. But I've literally driven and gone into alpha state and can't remember how I've gotten to point A and B, literally. I don't even remember stopping at lights, making right turns, left turns. That's happened to me a couple of times. But that's a whole nother story. But when you go into alpha state, they say even though you're in that state, you're still conscious of what's going on the mundane. It's crazy, but that's a whole nother story. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people. Okay, what else we got? Okay, need more coffee. Hi, thank you for doing a video on La Santissima Muerte. Have you ever had a negative experience with Santa Muerte? How did you come to know it? No, I never had a negative experience with Santa Muerte other than maybe tapping into too much of an energy and getting a migraine or a headache. How I first got introduced to Santa Muerte, I've told this a couple of times in past videos. My first introduction to her on any level, I'm going to say it was 92, 93. And I actually was in this indoor flea market, and there was a Mexican lady in there that had like I guess you can call it an occult store, spiritual store. It was a religious store. She had all these different, she had a Lady of Guadalupe, all these different Catholic icons. But then I noticed she had a whole section, and behind the counter, she had now at the time, I didn't know because she was my first being exposed, she explained, and I'll never forget this. Behind the counter, she had all these different aspects of the Holy Death. I was ignoring all the Catholic shit because that didn't have my attention. When I stopped and saw that, that's what made me go in. So obviously, I find out later, obviously, she's a practitioner and worked with the Holy Death for years. I find this out afterwards, after I talked to her. So she sees me in there for a couple minutes, just wandering around. She keeps seeing me look at the Holy Death. So she comes up to me and we start talking, and she tells me, gives me the basic breakdown of the Holy Death and what it is and what it represents, et cetera, et cetera. So, I told her, I said, well, it caught my attention. I was intrigued by it. Now, mind you, that was, again, 93, 94. That was always there. And I always remember this look on her face. Now, the look on her face, when I look at it and reflect, and as I'm talking about it right now, I see her face, the exact expression on her face. When I reflect back on it now, I always say, like, she had this expression, like, you don't know now, but you will. Like, that was supposed to be my introduction. It wasn't meant for me at that time to fuck with it, but that was to make me aware. And then years later, if you speed up, maybe 10 years later or so, is when I actually started doing some work with her. I actually got introduced to her on another level later in Palo, because in Palo Mayembe, it's a very rare aspect of it. Some individuals receive that spirit in Palo Mayembe. So then my second introduction after that was through Palo Mayembe. I said, holy shit. When I saw the name, I said, is this the same thing? It is a connection there. It wouldn't be the same as the traditional aspect that in mainstream, but there is a similarity. And then which branched me into my own research where I'm at today. So then I just started carrying out ritualistic work, working with her. And as I've said, where I am now financially, that's the Holy Death. I started doing work with her for certain things that I'm doing, and then the floodgates just opened. I also do a lot of road clearing and path work with her. So anytime I need a problem resolved, obstacles, challenges, paths cleared, that's the aspect that I work with her. So that was my first introduction to her back in, again, early 90s. I'm going to say 92, 93-ish, definitely around that time. Then Palo Mayembe about 10 years later, 10 years later. Because when I first was introduced at that time, I didn't do anything with it. It's like I was just intrigued by it. But again, as I talk about it now, I could always see that expression on that lady's face. Like she knew that was supposed to be my introduction. And later down the road, I'd start working with it. And she was right. All right. Yes, go Rams. I hate the Cowboys. I don't want Dallas or Philadelphia to win. I'm a Giants fan. Yes, I'm a hater. I hate the Eagles. I hate the Cowboys. I don't care who goes in the NFC as long as it's not one of them two teams. But honestly, all right, man, it sucks to be a Bears fan. That was a shitty way to end the season. And that was pure luck. I'm expecting, if everything goes the way it should, the Saints should crush the fucking Eagles. That shouldn't even be a game. Now, the Rams, I'm a little worried, man. Phil, I know you're out there in L.A., man. I'm rooting for the Rams. But they're looking a little iffy right now, last 3-4 weeks. And it looks like people adjusted to golf, man. I'm a little worried. But if Gurley is healthy, they should be able to neutralize the Cowboys. And they're at home. So the Cowboys suck outside of at home. They can't. They do shitty on the road. So I expect it to be a decent game, but the Rams should win. I hope that Saints crush the Eagles. I'm rooting for my boy Mahomes in Kansas City. I'm worried about their defense. I wouldn't be surprised if Indy wins that game. I don't want Indy to win. I want to see the Chiefs. I like Andy Reid, especially since he left Philadelphia, and I love Mahomes. The kid is electric, man. I mean, for those that were talking a little football, if you don't know, you probably like, what the fuck? I'm rooting for the Chiefs because Mahomes is probably my favorite player in the NFL right now, even though I'm a Giants fan. And the other game, I hate New England because I'm a Yankees fan, and one thing, my Giants we put it on them twice, so they never beat us in the Super Bowl. They have all that other glory they can claim, but they couldn't beat us. They had 2 shots at us and they lost. But I'm hoping Phillip Rivers deserves something, man. He's been in the league a long time. I think the Chargers can do it. New England looks a little weak this year. They look like they got some. We'll see if they come out on fire. But I think the Chargers have a good shot of winning that game, even though it's in New England. So let's see what happens, brother Phil. Like I say, as long as the Rams or the Saints in the Super Bowl in the NFC, I'm cool. I don't want to see no damn Eagles and no Cowboys, man. Screw that. Yes, the music's the shit. Baffelmarger. All right, people. We're almost getting there. I'm surprised all y'all still here. All right. Oh, man. David Hall, 330. Sex magic is a great tool. Encompass all things you know that you are at the moment, your own personal name. I like the willpower to approach predator or prey. Yes, very powerful. And I'm thinking about on rituals, doing a class soon on that. Just the spiritual rituals of it. Infernal Union ritual, and I was talking about Samael Lilith. Was a lot of those rituals combine the masculine and feminine, like the Infernal Union, for an example. That deals with becoming a Baphomet, right? You have the masculine represented. You can use Set and Nephthys. You can use Samael Lilith. Any of those archetypes that tie into that. And in that ritual, you'll notice the wording in there. There's a part towards the end where you come to your climax. And in that particular ritual, you make that statement, I have become a Baphomet. You understand? Because what does Baphomet embody? It's a symbol, right? I know I talked about last few days about these wackos on the internet in the conscious community spooking out, but I don't want to get into that now. That's draining. It represents totality, equilibrium, the masculine, feminine, as above, so below, as within, so without. You're tapping into all of those energies, and you can fuel the power of the orgasm. You can fuel whatever intent for your magical purpose. So I did something on that a little while, but I haven't really done anything on that in a while. So, if I forget these things, people send me an email because that's the type of person I am, because I'm here and there. So I might even forget I said this tonight. But David Hall, you can always send me an email to remind me. I would like to do a class on that and on earlier about the whole thing that came up about the Grand Architect, alchemy, the Emerald Tablets. Guys, send me reminder emails. Peace Days Rod. Yeah, we're getting there. We're almost at the bottom right now. Good point by Undulating Darkness. One thing I do is often try various magic affirmation spells with the least effort to see what can be done without the fluff. Just raw shake. Just give it a good gaze on person. Yeah. I mean, put your own, however you see fit. That's a good point. Brother Media, have you ever had any magical work backfire on you other than nothing happening? Not real, nothing detrimental or, terrible? No. But yes, backfire where just nothing happened, sure. Most definitely. That'll happen. And then I'll come to the realization it just wasn't done right. But backfire in the sense where I was harmed or danger, no, because I make sure I'm very detailed about doing my work. So that can prevent that. But I can't say I've ever had anything detrimental, damaging, or anything on that level. No. All right. We are at the last couple of comments, people. Try to didn't know you were Eagles fan, bro. Don't take it personal. Try to send me to. We're same division rivals. You got to hate the Giants. You can't like the Giants. We're so bad the last couple of years, man. So I got to hate on these other teams, man. I mean, we got to get our shit together. I can't watch this shit no more. I mean, there's some potential there. I'm starting to see. I'm excited about Saquon. That's my boy. I mean, he's going to be electric fire. We get that O-line back up and running. It got better as the season went on. The second half, we did a lot better. That first half was fucking, oh my God. I couldn't even watch them the first 8 games of the year. It was so terrible. But, Eli's got to go, obviously. His time is up. We need to draft a quarterback. We got the 6th pick in the draft. Let's see if, but this class of quarterbacks coming out this year is not like last year. So take it for what it is. But I think we could be better next year. You know how the NFC East is, though. It's always somebody new every year. It's never the same team every year. It's always like a revolving door. But I got to hate on my NFC. I hate the Redskins, too. You can't like the same teams in your division, man. And the reason why I hate the Eagles is we can't beat them motherfuckers, man. We're horrible against them in the last 7, 8 years. I think we only beat them like 2 or 3 times. All right, so Dominic Heredia, yeah, send me an email. But I would also, your question, you must have came on very late. I would refer you, for the sake of time, go into my archives if you're new to the channel. You'll see just a few weeks ago, I did look at the video, what Lucifer and what it means to be Luciferianism. I addressed exactly what you're saying. Also look at the 11 points of power. You'll see them. They were back to back. It wasn't that long ago. It was about a month or so ago. Just for the sake of time, and it's getting late. Not that I'm blowing your question off. You could also send me an email, but that you're going to have like both of those videos are like 6 hours. It's going to answer everything you want to know about Luciferianism. And I addressed that in the very beginning to someone that may not be uneducated on it. And I do that by explaining the religious concept and removing all of that, dogma that's perpetrated on what people think it is, and take you to some sources you can research for yourself, so do that. And again, for the sake of time, I did address it in this video. You might want to check the playback of this. If you came on late, it was somewhere in the middle, and refer to, and go look at those other videos. So you don't hate Cowboy. I don't know why. Look, Eli just don't have a personality. I don't know. I guess maybe because I'm a Giants fan, I'm being biased. I guess that's why I say I can't hate him. But with Eli, you live or die with him. He shows moments of greatness, and then he just does some shit where you scratch your fucking head like, what the fuck was that? Yeah, Saquon's he's the man, Saquon, man. He's going to be the shit, man. This is a guy that can catch out of the backfield. He can run. And I know you saw that last game of the year against you guys. Well, no, against the Cowboys. I'm sorry, you're an Eagles fan. I know you saw that play where he looked like Dr. J going to the hoop. That was sick. He jumped from like the 2-yard line. I never seen that shit. I mean, he's athletic. He can run the ball. He's strong. He can stiff on people. He can run on the edges. He can run through the hole. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He reminds me of Barry Sanders, right? Everybody's comparing him to Barry Sanders. But the difference is I think he's a better receiver. And then what's his name? Damn. The guy that we had that retired. I'm drawing a brain fart because it's getting late. Fucking what's his name? Tiki. Tiki Barber was an all-purpose back, but Saquon is much more skilled. Tiki was a great receiver out of the backfield. When you got a guy that can run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield, man, I know people were a little, questioning why do you take a running back second pick overall, but I think people are eating them words now. I don't think we made a mistake. We do need a quarterback though, because we ain't got nobody right now. It's Eli, or they're saying about we might be getting your boy. That's the talk. That's the inside scoop. If the Eagles don't keep Foles, that's the big thing. The Giants might use that sixth pick on another player, and they're talking about trying to sign Foles in free agency. But we'll see. All right, people. Anyway, I appreciate it. This has been fun. If you need to contact me about the event on the 25th, a spiritual consultation or a reading or online classes, the email is in the description box of every video. It's khnum19@gmail.com, khnum19@gmail.com. If you forget it, just look at the videos. You'll see it right in the description box. This has been fun, but we're going to call it a night. Peace, love, and hair grease.